We'll talk a whole lot of AFC Championship game here on 810, and I will try to figure out where I think we actually all stand now. Welcome into the zone. I am Joshua Brisco. Dylan Michaels on the other side of the glass. Jason Anderson, a late scratch today. Hope to, everybody's questionable. We're all day to day here. We'll see if he can get some limited participation in practice today, but Dylan and I will be your crew for the trip around the football world here today. And I mentioned the football world sort of accidentally and sort of purposefully because around this time of year, as has become shockingly normal, I start doing a lot more little quick sort of national or in some cases international radio hits. Your team goes to the AFC Championship game, people start calling you saying, hey, will you come on and talk on our station about this football team and tell me what changed, from where they were 2 months ago to where they are now. Let's talk about Patrick Mahomes, et cetera, et cetera. And first of all, it's fun. This morning I did one that'll be on in Toronto later today. International man of mystery. But part of the reason that I think that's a fun exercise to be doing around this time of year is that you will fluctuate between spending hours and hours and hours a day here in our side talking about this team or in your side listening to us talk about this team and, sounding off and having your conversations around the workplace, the house, whatever, about what this team looks like to you. But it's nice to zoom out and to get the wider perspective from everybody else who didn't watch every single breathless snap of this Chiefs season, because there are layers to it. And the big picture view is the craziest thing ever still, which is that the Chiefs have had 6 seasons with Patrick Mahomes as the starting quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. And every single time, the worst they have done is lose the AFC Championship game. I'm going to keep being a broken record on that until I get bored of saying it, which will hopefully be, 70 years from here. I'd take a good 70, get me pretty close to a hundo. I'll take it. But as much as I could spend the rest of my life appropriately talking about the fact that what the Chiefs have been doing in this era completely transcends even the most ridiculous hopes of the most breathless optimists from a decade ago, even then, we get sucked into what happens this season. So I want to go back to something we talked about before the playoffs kicked off. Me and Jason and Dylan all talked about what each stopping point, what each potential ending of the year would result in disappointment. And I keep hearing people talk about house money for the Chiefs at this point. And I don't disagree, but I don't think, I maybe even said it at some point, but I don't think it's quite sufficient until you actually kind of appreciate that analogy on an extra level. Tell me real quick, just go ahead and think to yourself, you have a good NFL week on DraftKings. You come out in the green, think, oh man, this was a nice week. I got a little extra cash in my pocket because I'm so smart. This is all house money here. I got bonus bets to spend. That's house money. How does it feel when you lose the house money? It still feels bad. It still feels bad. I'll bring the analogy straight to home. I had a great day on DraftKings during Chiefs-Bills because against all odds and for the first time in a while, I did have a decent feel for how a Chiefs game was going to go. But I had a house money wager for the Chiefs money line, and because I'm greedy, parlayed it with an alternate over-under line. That over-under line was 50.5. This game ended with 51 points scored. That was house money. It was free money. And then it lost, and I'm still hurt about it. And I actually kind of think that's where the Chiefs are at right now. I still had a nice couple transactions. I still feel more good than bad. But even losing the house money is still a loss. The Chiefs are going to go to Baltimore, and they're going to play another AFC Championship game. And I just don't believe with one cell of my body that if the Chiefs lose that game, that Patrick Mahomes will be on the plane coming back to Kansas City thinking, well, our receivers really stunk for the regular season and we still got this far, so, that's pretty cool. Because that's not where this team stops. That's not where the standard for this team is set. And I do think it, at least a little bit, undercuts the blood, sweat, and tears that go into getting this far in an NFL season. You can have great personal goals and successes that you clear there. You can overachieve, and the Packers and the Texans were playing with house money. But so were the 2018-19 Tennessee Titans. They were playing with house money. Ryan Tannehill's got us to the AFC Championship game. Wow, this is great. That will be the high point of that organization. It was the high point of that organization for a pretty wide era until you go back to, Steve McNair. And it will probably be the highlight of that organization for a very long time. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is not going to end up on a Dan Marino track where he gets close and then doesn't win rings because he's already got 2 of them. But getting back to these spots is so difficult. The Chiefs have made it look easy. It is not easy. And I'm really thinking about Travis Kelce. All Mahomes has done is win. He's a competitive porcupine. And there will be no solace in losing a game that you are numb to before the wheels hit the ground back in Kansas City. I just don't think that's going to happen. I also don't think that Andy Reid and the rest of this coaching staff that has been pulling teeth this year on the offensive side of the ball, or the defensive coaching staff that has done every single thing that you could have possibly asked them to do, both schematically and developmentally, are any of them going to feel like celebrating when their season falls 2 games short? Especially with almost all of these guys, not all, but a very, very, very large portion of this team did get to that mountaintop last year, and they know what it was like to be on that parade route. And a lot of these guys know what it's like to get really close and not close the deal. None of this is an argument for picking the Chiefs on Sunday. None of this is an argument that the Ravens also aren't going to be feeling all of those things. But it's made me recalibrate and reconsider when we talked about expectations. Jason posed that to us before the playoffs started, and we all agreed losing to the Dolphins in the wild card round would have been a disaster, and it would have been the disastrous ending to a disastrous season. Everything went wrong. It goes wrong against Miami.
Eagles-esque.
Very Eagles-esque, absolutely. You're not firing the head coach, but imagine if they would have lost to the Dolphins 13-9. I don't think Matt Nagy would have gotten fired. I think a lot of people would have called it on Monday, saying, whatever Eric Bieniemy wants, bring him home. Can we get some injections into Juju's knees and send the Patriots a 6th-round pick? And they avoided that. To Dylan's point, that Eagles-esque meltdown. And then we had a little bit of sort of line walking in terms of divisional to AFC championship, knowing it was going to be going to Buffalo. I think what I said at the time was that losing in Buffalo would be lowercase d disappointing. Not necessarily the disastrous ending to the disastrous season, but watching Buffalo celebrate at home, going to an AFC championship game, and weeks of Josh Allen squashes Patrick Mahomes at home in the playoffs, get Mahomes out of Arrowhead, and then what? The takes would have been insufferable. The takes are insufferable, and the Chiefs won that game. I continue to fight the urge to cut some of the stupidest audio that has made it to media the last few days, because I don't really think that more people need to hear it.
I think there's some people that have been hiding their hate for the Chiefs for a long time, and they were ready for us to lose, and they're starting to come out of the woodwork. And I think that if they win Sunday, a lot of people who wanted to cover the Ravens in Las Vegas instead of the Chiefs for another year are going to show up even more.
I think you're right. And there's some version of that, by the way, where I don't blame those people, and there's some version of those people that I despise. I didn't want you to think that I was going to let everybody off too easy here. If you're like national media talking head and you just spent like 15 years talking about the sustained incredible greatness of Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, we've been there, right? We've seen all of that. We know what that's like. I get it. It's frustrating. It's exhausting. It's the same note over and over again. How many times am I going to say this quarterback is going to be the one that knocks off Tom Brady? It's a tough and often stupid thing to predict.
They just can't fathom that is in the middle of America. They don't like it being in the middle of America. They're okay when it's on the east or west coast.
And that's interesting, too, because I think that the way that a lot of those shows frame it, I think there's something to it. I also think that even ESPN up in the Northeast eventually lost their feel for how to cover the Patriots, because it's just the same thing all the time. It's still always, all right, well, who's the challenger? Because the Patriots are going to be in the mix. Who's going to challenge the Patriots? Is this the year that someone else wins the AFC East? No, never. Is this the year that someone else is going to make it to the AFC Championship game against the Patriots? Yeah, maybe. Is this the year they're going to beat the Patriots to get to the Super Bowl? Not very often, but it happens sometimes. Is it going to be the year that the New York Giants are the team that knocks off New England in the Super Bowl? Yes, it is. So I don't blame some of that. If you just have Mahomes is great and I don't know how to say it anymore. If that's where you end up, I will never be that person because I will enjoy talking about that for the rest of my natural life. But I'll take it, and maybe nationally that's tougher. I have no interest in people taking this as a time to be the brave ones that said I'd still would rather have Josh Allen. Give me Josh Allen every day of the week. You know, I know we haven't seen him playing in a while, but you give me Joe Burrow in that Chiefs team. You give Joe Burrow those Chiefs pass catchers. I say, with absolutely no shred of self-awareness, ball knowledge, or any sort of idea about how this sport works. Those people I can't stand. Because, please, just do your best to at least, offer a genuine take. Don't be disingenuous. In general, in life, I would like for more people to take that advice. Don't be disingenuous. Usually, you're not hiding it as well as you think you are. Personally. That's where I'm coming from. You know, a lot of people rally around disliking disingenuous people, and most of the time, it's not like, oh, yeah, man, I thought they were being completely intellectually honest the first 10 years on television. That's weird. And then sometimes it is surprising. Right now, you can watch Warren Sharp melt down in front of your very eyes because he did some good analytics and good analyzation over the first couple of years and then started descending a little bit. And now he's just fully the Chiefs picked this refereeing crew because they favor the road team. All right, brother. Calm down. You're not in a mustache competition with Andy Reid. Your mustaches can coexist. I'm sorry you bet on the Bills or whatever. I digress.
We know who you are. You're not a news aggregator, so you don't have to act like one.
That's a good point. Your name is on your stuff. Just be yourself. And also, people have real misconceptions about how much money Twitter clicks easily translate into. It's not that much. They're working way too hard for your bad faith engagement. I don't get it. It's a weird strategy. But anyway. I think the Chiefs right now would be flying back from Baltimore and extremely, extremely frustrated, extremely let down in their own final effort if they lose this game. I bet, and everyone listening now can sound off on this if you'd like. We've got the video feeds on the 810 Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. You can tweet me at JB Brisco. You can tweet Dylan at DMichaels810. And in that mix of like where your head and your heart are at right now, not in terms of prediction, but in terms of how you feel going into this game in terms of where the Chiefs should be. Because there's one other factor I haven't mentioned yet that I think I talked about on postgame. I might have talked about it on Monday. Maybe we talked about it yet. I don't know. Maybe we're talking a lot. What we saw against the Bills that I wasn't completely sure we were going to see again this year was an essentially perfect playoff Patrick Mahomes. And it's not that he had this disastrous season where the illusion came down. It's that, as we saw, Patrick Mahomes can put the football anywhere on the field. He can do it with perfect accuracy, and if the receiver doesn't catch it or track it or get to that spot, it does not matter how good the ball was. And one thing I've bemoaned all year, watching other teams find guys to do this, is I have asked, who on this team makes Mahomes better? Who makes Mahomes right when he's maybe wrong or maybe at least walking the line of a 50-50 ball kind of situation? Receivers have been letting him down all year, making him wrong for targeting them. Who's going to eventually return the favor of what Mahomes has been doing all year? You get two of those from MVS in the Bills game. You get Travis Kelce scoring touchdowns. You get the running game moving with efficiency. And all of a sudden, all of those absolute bullets that Patrick Mahomes is slinging, they mean something again. It's not just an idea, and it's not just a reminder of what the Chiefs have underachieved at, or just a reminder that there was more they've wasted, this potential. Because look at how good Mahomes is, but MVS wasn't there to catch it. We're in a spot now where you've seen this version of this Chiefs team put up 27 points in a very efficient, not completely self-sabotaging manner that should have been more than 27. It could be, call it 34 if you want to give him the full touchdown and assume everything else happens the same way. But if McCole Hardman keeps that ball to himself, the Chiefs should be blowing past a 30-point offensive game in the divisional round against the Bills. Now, again, last week we thought the wrong team was favored going in the Chiefs-Bills. I'm not in prediction mode yet. I still have time to figure this out. But I don't think the wrong team is favored in Baltimore. I think Baltimore should be favored. They are healthier, and they had the best season in the AFC. Those two things should make you the favorite. Noting that also that I'm not doing that to avoid talking about the quarterback like we do with the Niners. It's like they were a juggernaut and they're healthy.
They had the best season in the NFL.
Absolutely, they did. And we say stuff like that so we don't have to say, I don't know if I trust their quarterback or not. I trust their quarterback if he makes it to a dome in Vegas. Maybe then it'll be fine. But is a fine miss going to change your analysis of the Chiefs or the Ravens? No, absolutely not. So the Ravens have the three things. They have consistent accomplishment, they have current health, and they have the quarterback. The Bills and Dolphins didn't have health. The Dolphins didn't have the quarterback. I mean, the Dolphins may have not also had extremely consistent accomplishment by the time the end of the season came around. And I am really hoping that we're going to get good news about Willie Gay and Mike Edwards soon, because I do think they matter, despite the fact that they're the third linebacker and third safety on this team entering the year. Brian Cook goes down, Edwards is the 2. Edwards goes down, Jamari Connor's the 2, Deion Bush is the 3. The Ravens are going to have a lot of levers they can pull in this game. that, again, right now has me acknowledging I think that if I pick the Chiefs to win this game, it would be predicting an upset in a way that I did not feel was the case against the Bills. Technically it was, because the Bills were favored. That didn't make sense to me. I hopped on the Chiefs money line really early in the week. It's like, this feels like a good move. I wasn't worried about that with the Ravens. Team is legit good. Quarterback is legit MVP. But you saw it from Mahomes in the offense against the Bills. And how can that not make you reevaluate your expectations at least a little bit? Because part of the calculus with the expectations, when we talked before the playoffs started, part of the calculus was that the offense wasn't to be trusted, and the pass catchers weren't to be trusted, and that the consistency wasn't going to be there, and that the answers hadn't arrived offensively. I don't think the middle of the field's going to be there against Baltimore like it was against Buffalo. Schematically and talent-wise, this Ravens defense is better than the Bills. But I also think that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco, and maybe more importantly than he's going to get credit for this week because the Bills game ended up being slightly quieter, Rashee Rice. I think that mix has to terrify any team in football. And I know that I mean any team in football because I'm talking about the Ravens, and I think they are in as good a position as anybody in the sport to take this one from the Chiefs.
It's the old Patriots. It really is the old Patriots. Because Tom, Bill, and Gronk, and then throw in a running back. LeGarrette Blount.
Yep. They would always
Ridley.
find one.
Yep, they just find
Sonny Michel.
three of them at the same,
he win one?
whatever. So it's the same betting mentality. Everyone thinks that it's just a walk in the park for the Ravens. They have everything they need. Everyone's healthy, but Mahomes.
But Mahomes was not a sufficient reason to believe in the Chiefs at the low points of their regular season. Because it was not but Mahomes, it was just Mahomes. And even then, you could see not the bottom fall out. That's exaggerating. But you could see it wearing on him, it felt like. Kind of feels like he's got a swagger back, to quote a great man quoting a great man. Quoting a great man? Quoting Michael Scott, I think. It's doing something fun for me, man. It's making me a little bit nervous about this game because I'm absolutely not in the headspace where I think this is 80-20 Ravens, where I think that there is a finite shot that we're doing a happy post-game show. I think there's a real good chance the Chiefs end up back in the Super Bowl again, which is kind of what we said. Get to the AFC Championship game and see what happens. Single game sample size, punch your ticket to Vegas, or punch your ticket back home. Either way, I do think this is a worthy stopping point, a worthy result for this Chiefs season being what it was. If you would have flipped last year and this year, Jason may have made this point. I might be stealing a Jason take. But if you flip last year's result, and if they lose the Ravens this year's result, you say, hey, you trade Tyreek Hill, you reload this defense, you rebuild, you get to an AFC Championship game, lose to the Ravens, and then next year you win it all. Everybody in Kansas City would have taken that. No question. But now there's like a path to a back-to-back, and now I'm getting kind of greedy. Let's take a break. Zone rolls on here on 810. More next. had not even considered. Of like, oh no. It could go from the fatigue that we talked about in the first segment and the AFC foes who the Chiefs have trampled. You know, the Bengals hate them and the Bills hate them and the Ravens would hate them and obviously the AFC West hates them. That I'm comfortable with because that's just the price of being excellent. But to win the Super Bowl when Jared Goff and Dan Campbell's Lions get there, it would, I tell you what, it would be a hell of a week for narratives. Just Super Bowl Radio Row narratives, not even like the incredibly annoying ones that don't deserve all of your time. But just in terms of like, okay, here it is. It's the dynastic Chiefs against Detroit. Taylor Swift versus Eminem. I was trying to think if they have any history. I imagine at some point they've, you know, they're both relatively large stars in the same general realm. So I was trying to think if there was a already pre-existing beef there. I don't know. And if the Ravens win, give me Baltimore versus Detroit. Kind of win-win. But we're going to be rooting for the Lions because they're the Lions.
And even if you get San Fran, Mr. Irrelevant winning a Super Bowl, I mean, come on, that's also pretty awesome.
And then
someone was saying they're looking for the Eli Manning of this era. Could be Brock Purdy.
It might be Brock Purdy.
It really could be either guy on the other side of the.
That's true too. Jared Goff also. They both have a little Eli energy.
And Brock Purdy's trending on Josh Allen territory, where like I probably shouldn't have said that into a microphone about Brock Purdy. I need to dump that. But
you probably should, and at the very least, like begin hiding your identity soon, because you're right. Totally random aside, which feels like a good way for this show to continue rolling here. The venomous quarterback stan situation. I mentioned this in Fact or Fiction yesterday. I just have to get off Twitter some. I just can't, like, God bless Marcus Spears, who is handling this as well as anybody. And at one point, someone just sent him just the most ridiculous football take I've ever seen. And it's not even like, I think Brock Purdy's good and we should give him credit. No. It was like, it was really out. I believe what the tweet included, Brock got George Kittle his first 1,000-yard season in how many years? Like Brock Purdy works for the training staff. Bleep off. You got George Kittle 1,000 yards? Being healthy and playing for the Niners. George Kittle is a monster, and his only weakness is his own body. If he is healthy, I could throw him 800 yards. In Shanahan's offense, I could do it. I would at least be on that pace until I died in the pocket the first time Aaron Donald breathed on me, which would be the first snap. But last year, in the last couple of years, it was Tuanon. Tua Tagovailoa was getting some of that hype. You know who it was before that? It was Jimmy Garoppolo. It was the quarterback of the same team. We were doing the whole conversation about like, well, listen, I know Kyle Shanahan's a great offensive mind, but I mean, could just any quarterback do that? What, you think that they could let Jimmy Garoppolo walk and then just what, replace him with Mr. Irrelevant? Okay, idiot. Nobody except for Brock Purdy could possibly be doing this with the Niners. Well, guys, there might be middle ground here.
Ask Sam Darnold.
Ask Sam Darnold what you could do.
Another aside.
Please,
the look. I just am remembering the video shot of Purdy coming to sit down and Darnold, of all people. Like, was that confident in that offense? Like, what do you know?
Hey, man.
Like, yeah, this is my show now. Like, everyone probably wants to be in that offense as a quarterback.
Yeah.
At least once.
Absolutely. I think the best part of Shanahan potentially winning a Super Bowl this year is that he can win one in San Francisco, so when Andy Reid retires in 4 years, he can just make the jump on over. He can say, you know what? I won one in San Francisco. Let me win one on the AFC also. Let me have Mahomes. That's where I'm at mentally. We're working on.
Win or lose, I think you're on pace.
We're gonna. I guess that's true. oh yeah, maybe Shanahan loses to the Lions, and it's like clock's ticking, hot seat, and then it's 2 years before they can him, and then it's before they Kyle Shanahan can him, and then he can find the new home here, and Clark Hunt. This time, maybe he could get the coach to fly to him instead of him having to go to Andy Reid.
Another coaching thing, more aside, just keep the flow.
We're
going.
talking. It's all NFL football, baby.
Just talking through it. Does Sean McDermott send Kadarius Toney a gift basket every year, or just for Christmas? Because boy, that if you think about it,
saved his job.
Yeah,
saved his job.
Because that could have turned into cost us the season because we had to go to Buffalo, yada yada. It's completely flipped. Of Sean McDermott kept his job, and honestly, we should be happy because Jim Harbaugh isn't a Buffalo Bills head coach right now.
This is Galaxy Brain. This is good. Everyone should thank Kadarius Toney. I think somebody else had this take. It might have been Bomani. I can't remember. Who said honestly the best thing for the Bills would have been just losing in the wild card round because they still might have fired McDermott.
I still think that's possible.
It's compelling.
Still think you should. If I'm the Buffalo owner and Jim Harbaugh and Bill Belichick are out there.
Well, hey Bill.
Yeah.
I know you've been talking to the team that has Desmond Ridder. Could I interest you in Josh Allen? Would you like to, hey Bill? Would you like to coach a gunslinger?
And I know you don't want to upset New England or anything like that, and
no,
coach
you would
a team
hate that.
In the division twice a year against them with an actually better quarterback and
the better team for sure. You would hate to do that. You would hate to take the division right away from them again. Wouldn't you, Bill? I'm not 1,000% sure that the Bill Belichick reboot is going to work swimmingly, but I am pretty confident that would be an upgrade. And obviously Josh Allen and Sean McDermott are a horrendous marriage. It's just like it's uncomfortable to watch. I know Josh Allen and Bill Belichick is a weird one, but I think that might kind of work a little bit. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because Josh Allen is gunslinger YOLO balls that would probably drive Belichick kind of nuts, but he's also just kind of a football yeti. And I think Belichick had Cam Newton as a stopgap. This is fine. I forgot about that. We're good here. Buffalo Bill Belichick. Pun name game tomorrow. Come back for that. $25 to Johnny's Tavern if you can remember Buffalo Bill Belichick. That is not legally binding unless I remember to write it down for the pun name game, which if we're being honest, I probably won't.
Yeah. You know what movie, though, you would use, probably?
What would I use?
Buffalo Bill. Have you seen...
You mean to take a break? What have I seen?
The Silence of the Lambs.
I haven't. I haven't.
I should have known my audience.
You gotta know your audience.
Yeah. Yep. I was thinking Jason. I just didn't even look.
I know. So much of us is so similar that happens all the time. The puns are all there. I think Belichick would go through a table for another playoff run. I feel like he might do the Jason Kelsey thing in this week. Which, by the way, New Heights this week, I did listen to them talk about everything from the game. There's a couple things. As a preview of what's going to happen later, we'll talk to Cynthia Freeland of NFL Network here in like 10 minutes or so, 10 or 15. And then later today, we're going to have a ton of audio live from Arrowhead. Way more than your usual Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week as they prepare for the AFC Championship game. So we will have a lot of audio there, and we will hear from Kelsey later this week and everything too. So I didn't chop up all of the details about everything in the game, but there was some very fun stuff about the extenuating circumstances of everything happening there in Buffalo. So we'll try to bring a little bit of that to you later on here as well. Let me Google Silence of the Lambs, you said? The whole book about livestock? Is he wearing a hockey mask here? I'm confused.
Sort of. No, he's in a.
Oh, it's a book about. It's like a recipe book. It's about.
Yes,
it's like a culinary.
A cookbook.
It's a cookbook, basically.
Yes.
What are farva beans? Wrong gunslinger. We got layers. There are possibilities here. but it all starts with Bill Belichick absolutely not agreeing to coach Desmond Ridder. That's the actual football cannibalism we have to avoid. That would be upsetting. Plus, I don't think I'm capable of watching him in a Falcons cutoff hoodie. We watch Brady in a Bucs uniform though, so
he's in a dome. It doesn't fly. It doesn't. I need the snow coming down. I need all the aesthetics. I need everything.
Bill Belichick is a better coach when he's physically uncomfortable, right?
Right.
Just seems that way. I don't know. There's something to it. He's also older than Andy Reid, and Mike Florio's not talking about him retiring. So, layers to all of it. Speaking of maniacs who should be tied to a gurney. Whoa! What? Come on. That's a joke. That's a joke. I can't believe Dylan said that.
Well, what's the old saying of the guarantee things? Death, taxes, and Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Isn't that the old saying? I'm pretty sure it's a tale as old as time. But also guaranteed foods, being America's finest home food service.
One other thing from Chiefs Bills that I didn't see until after the show yesterday that is very funny and very weird and just where we're at right now is that after Tyler Bass's kick went wide right, the view of the Chiefs sidelines is kind of hilarious. Someone tweeted out a clip. I quote tweeted it at JB Brisco. You can go look and see the actual sort of side by side of both sidelines. But the kick misses, and you may have seen some of the interactions between the Chiefs sidelines and the Bills fans behind them. But Rashee Rice, a rookie who, by every metric I have heard of so far, is a pretty, seems like a pretty even-keeled, mild-mannered dude. Certainly as wide receivers go. He misses the Bass misses the kick, and Rashee Rice in this full sideline parker or whatever turns straight around, right to the fans behind the bench, points at them just with his jaw agape, just full on mouth open, pointing like he is about to start giggling like there's no tomorrow. Then he looks at a teammate and then does just go to fully pointing and laughing at Bills fans. Now, you saw Chris Jones. You saw the Chiefs down in the end zone. Travis Kelce talked about it in New Heights that came out today. He said it got, I think Kelce said it got hateful. Inappropriate was certainly the word in there. Some things about Pat, Kelce mentioned. He didn't want to repeat any of them in particular. He said that was part of why he did the little heart hand celebrations to say, hey, this isn't mutual. You hate me, I love you. It's all love from me, from my side. But for Travis Kelce, bleep talker that he is, to say that, things got pretty hostile there in Buffalo between the fans behind the bench, and I saw tweets saying the same thing, that it was a high percentage group of high ABV people. Even Rashee Rice got in on the fun.
She's done the research.
I measured the big boys' booties for like 2 years.
She's analyzed the data.
If you can keep that big booty down, like if you are a big boy, if you're very tall and you can keep your booty down low, then you are far more successful.
She's crunched the numbers, and the results are clear.
The back of booty isn't as good, as it turns out.
If she picks a dog, she'll have the math to back it up.
It's not like Travis Kelce is done. My dog is very excited about this, just so you know.
It's Cynthia Freeland of NFL Network. Now in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
It is Cynthia Freeland. It is not Jason Anderson. He was a late scratch today. So Joshua Brisco, that's me, here on this side. Dylan Michaels on the other side of the glass as we talk to our friend Cynthia Freeland of NFL Network here in the zone. We'll have a whole bunch of Chiefs pressers coming up in just a little bit after we're done with Cynthia. So Cynthia, if I end up cutting us a couple minutes short today, please don't take it personally. It's the Chiefs now, starting it this week, decide to parade the entire team at the podium for the next few days, which is good for protecting our voices, I guess.
No, it's awesome. It's also good to hear from them. So no worries at all. That's great.
Usually we hear from Travis Kelce through New Heights, which is, a more curse-filled and generally enjoyable platform. But it's good to hear him at the podium also. Well, the first thing, Cynthia, for me is how on earth was it in Detroit last weekend? What was that experience like? I saw some of the clips. I saw everything that she tweeted. But I have to imagine that being there for that was pretty special.
I mean, look, Midwesterners are just built different. You sometimes forget living out in California just how, literally we were in this bar and Tampa Bay Bucks fans would walk in. The Lions fans would boo for a second and then be like, come on, get a drink. Which is so Midwest, and I love it. It was great. People were so grateful and happy to just be there. It was freezing cold. No one cared. It was so much fun and so special. And the fact that, I had a great aunt come and bring me preserves. Come on. It was so great to be home and just see, it's such a special thing for such a city that's been through a ton of downtime. Yeah. So really special. And I was so inappropriate in the, in the presser after, you sit in the press box, you're supposed to be composed. I was crying. And then I was waiting for Dan Campbell to come to the podium and everyone's so quiet and serious. I'm like, guys, this is a historic moment. Maybe we should all go take shots. And everyone's laughing at me, so it's okay. It's okay.
It's better than okay. We need that energy in this world, and we need that energy in sports media. Because honestly, in all seriousness, we had the Royals do it here first, and they're kind of back to largely being sorry now. And then, of course, the Chiefs' entire rise. That moment is something that we will never experience again, and I'm glad for it. I'm happy to have the 6 straight AFC Championship games. I'm not yearning for the days of it being less fun around here. But those moments of, holy bleep, they're doing it. I didn't think I was ever going to live to see this is really special.
It's really special, and it was special to be there. The whole thing was crazy and surreal, but, I don't think anyone was mad at me for suggesting we take shots, but no one took a shot with me until after. So, I will say they were so professional, despite me trying to, egg them on to not be.
Every friend group needs a couple of medium bad influences, and it feels like you were providing that for the press box. Were you screaming or crying or wondering what Todd Bowles was doing at the end? Because I didn't realize even the bizarreness of that until these last couple of days. I'm like, oh, he had a timeout. You could have made him kick there. That was weird.
Yeah, I guess during the moment, I can't help myself. I'm an analyst and I do math all the time. So I was sitting there and everyone was kind of a guy next to me tweeted out, "See you in California." I'm like, don't tweet that yet. It's not over. They're still. And then I explained the time, and luckily he was right, and I was wrong. But it was one of those things where you're like, hey, this ain't over. We're not. It's not done yet. So luckily it worked out for Lions fans. It worked out, but very interesting call-wise. I think Todd Bowles said something like, when the game's over or something. So I would imagine if he had that one back, maybe he would change his decision, but I don't know.
I don't want to just be like, hey, Cynthia, explain going for 2 earlier in the game than you would absolutely have to, because I feel like that conversation has been had by people who do want to have it. Like, anytime a clip goes around of like, I just don't, why would you go for 2 now? You Google it. Like, there are like flow charts and everything for that. It's not that difficult.
Right.
But where do you feel like we are at in like a very meta sense in terms of the way we talk about analytics, and not even, I mean, I don't know how analytical you have to be to do the math in a circumstance like that, but like, are we in a better place than we were 5 years ago? Is Twitter just worse? Like, how do you wrap your head around all of that? Because it's growing to frustrate me again, and I thought I had graduated beyond being frustrated by people not caring about numbers.
Well, look, you have to make a decision based on the information that you believe is the most important. Now, we all believe certain logical fallacies. I mean, I will tell you, when the Bucks looked like they were going to make this big comeback, I moved positions because somehow I thought that could potentially change the trajectory of the earth, right?
Right.
And we all have our things that don't actually make sense. But the truth is if the coach doesn't see it, then it kind of doesn't exist. Meaning, if they don't buy into it, and even if the logic is correct, they're not going to do it. So I feel like we are overall. I mean, you saw the number of people who are taking the strategy and using the data to talk about, going for early, et cetera. Like, it's happening way more often, which would lead me to believe that people are more bought into it. But I think part of the problem is now we have taken the word analytics and kind of expanded it to mean things that it's not, right? Yeah. It is not, like when we say the analytics say,
yes,
right? Like,
yep.
They don't actually say that. Like, that is a specific, like when ESPN, for example, says the analytics in this position say X or Y, what they're really saying is that in the past, the model that they're using has shown that this has been the most successful. It doesn't know you have Isaiah Pacheco or I have Jahmyr Gibbs or whatever. It only knows like an average of past experiences in a similar situation. So the truth is they don't say anything. They provide a framework to show you what's a higher or lower probability, and it's a lot of complicated things to explain. So, of course, as broadcasters, we take shortcuts, and I do it myself sometimes, even though I have the background to explain it all. But you just don't always get all that time to say it. So it's just much easier to say the analytics say. But unfortunately, that has allowed people to be really lazy and group things that aren't analytics in with things that are.
It also drives me absolutely nuts when analytics, as you just mentioned, becomes a person. Like, there's just a person in the production truck, just in like the Guy Fawkes like anonymous mask or whatever, as opposed to I cannot remember his name right now, and you may bail me out, but the main next gen and analytics guy on the Prime games, when he pops up in his little box to explain the content. He fantastic. I was so glad to have his contributions to that whole side of everything, because that's a human being who understands it and can explain it to you. Maybe that's the next frontier. There's more of that.
That's what I've been trying to do. That's my goal personally, is to, be in game and but little less pop up like a ref does and a little more natural conversation.
Yep.
But I think that's the next. To me, that's where I'd like to really go next.
Talking to Cynthia Freeland.
We're talking about my career, clearly.
Listen, hold on. We're talking to Cynthia Freeland, who does some stuff right now and will take over the world and fix the way we talk about analytics in the next few years. And you're not going anywhere just yet, because I want to talk about the other games that we saw here, and then, of course, we'll look ahead to the conference championships. But what did you learn about the Chiefs in that game against the Bills? I think there are a couple of things we saw that maybe followed up the Dolphins game. A couple of things maybe broke some character. What did you see when the Chiefs go on the road, win in Buffalo, and make it the 6th consecutive AFC Championship game appearance?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was to me it was a very funny argument that it's going to be so different on the road. Sure, if you're Miami coming to Arrowhead in the freezing cold, that's going to be different. But I was kind of like, well, they do know each other. These teams actually know each other pretty well, but I don't know. I thought that was very interesting. What I saw from this team was a really great. I mean, I saw 3 deep completions, which is something we haven't really been seeing this season. That's the most in any game so far this season. That was really good. I saw a team that was able to absolutely exploit weaknesses in the opposing team's defense, from the linebacker level, which obviously we knew was completely decimated, to the cornerback level, which was not quite as decimated, but still pretty decimated. I thought that the game plan and the strategy, lining Travis Kelce up in all those different places to just confuse the crap out of these people who didn't know necessarily what was going to happen. And I think all of those things combined on the offensive side of the ball. I guess I wasn't, to be fair, I wasn't super, like, I knew that the defense would play well. The defense is playing well all season, but I thought the offense did an expert job of just absolutely, like, running into areas that made sense to run into, and passing, and all the different ways that Travis Kelce lined up, and that working was pretty cool.
I am 1,000% with all of that, and it also is the thing that gives me a little bit of pause with this Baltimore team, because you mentioned the places the Chiefs could pick on against the Bills. And against the Dolphins, we knew coming into that game, they had, like, you, me, and Justin Houston rushing the passer, and not ideal. I look at the Ravens, and obviously they have been so unique this year, and the things that they've been able to do on a week-to-week basis in terms of coming up with answers for opposing offenses has been really impressive. There's not going to be a spot on that defense, in my view, that's going to be exploitable in that way. Is there anything in the larger picture of what this Ravens defense has looked like that gives you a little premonition of where the Chiefs might try to poke at after having pretty obvious targets against the Dolphins and Bills?
Well, it sounds a little unsexy because we all want to see Patrick Mahomes slang it. But the truth is if the run game works, the Chiefs win this game. Because you can run at those, like Roquan Smith. You've got, obviously, nobody is going to say that their linebacker level is not awesome. And nobody's going to say that Geno Stone, who kind of came out of nowhere this year, but has allowed something like 8 of 15 catches to tight ends with 2 interceptions. No one's going to say that that's going to be an easy task for anyone to overcome. But especially if you're looking at how the Chiefs have been able to leverage multiple tight end looks and then run out of them and figure out how to get Isaiah Pacheco going, that is going to – if the Chiefs want to win, Isaiah Pacheco has a big game.
I think they'll let that happen. I think they'll follow that lead. I also know that I've said that before and hoped in that before. But also, Donovan Smith being back and playing left tackles had a good playoff run here after they lost Wanya Morris at the very end of the regular season.
Yep.
Joe Thuney, right now, not really sure where he's going to end up with the pec strain. And Nick Allegretti, their third guard, and has also kind of been the backup center this year. I think he'd probably be a starter in a lot of offensive lines. He's been here since they picked him up. But how do you account for that with the moving parts on the offensive line and maybe not knowing what the status of Thuney will be? What is one guard, albeit as good as it gets that position, what does that do for you in terms of impacting how a running game might work?
Well, we saw it last week. M&T Bank doesn't get enough credit for being a loud stadium. We saw it last week. Obviously, the Texans, their younger offense, nowhere near the level of experience in terms of handling moments like that. But they did have a number of, and even Laramie Tunsil, who's a seasoned veteran and a great left tackle, he wasn't able to really hear what was going on. So I'm less worried about the guard as I am maybe about the right tackle in terms of going a little bit early. I think they can overcome and figure out schematically how to, because Patrick's just so dynamic with, and especially if you can see the pressure coming, it's just not even, what are we talking about here? 15 is just ridiculous, right? But if you're going to get yourself in bad situations due to maybe some pre-snap penalties and stuff, that's where things get dicier because you just don't blitz Patrick, but the Ravens have the most pressures without having that extra rusher. So of their 60 regular season sacks, 44 of them came only using 4. So that's two-thirds, more than two-thirds of their sacks came only using 4. So that's where it's you can't get yourself in unmanageable second or third downs. Even though we know Patrick's great at third and long, this is a different kind of beast with this defense.
Yeah, and that has been, I mean, so much of the story of this season even has been trying to figure out, well, what? They're behind the stick so often. Those self-inflicted issues that happen on first or second down, setting them back. So that at least feels familiar. It's just against a really good defense that will definitely make them pay for it this time. What about trying to limit Lamar Jackson? I feel like we have seen, certainly his MVP campaign felt like it kind of solidified the last few weeks of the year, and obviously he has been spectacular. What has made this year's version of the Ravens offense so special and in a lot of ways so different after they had such major retoolings this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, what Todd Monken has done has really created this situation where Lamar is now having a season high, a career high in terms of passing from the pocket. So if you're looking at completion percentage, if you're looking at touchdowns thrown, like he's done the best from inside the pocket this year than he has ever before. And that's also with allowing him to still be himself and rush when need be. So the difference has been that intermediate level, a lot of different options. Lamar is just ridiculous at the intermediate level of passing. I mean, between Zay Flowers, who obviously is a rookie who's come on really, really strong, and of course having the stretching the field situation with OBJ, who we know he's like one of the best catch and run guys around, and still even in a little bit more of the more mature phase of his career. But it's really the opportunity to take the different types of looks, the confused defenses, and then really Lamar has like several different options from every look, and he's able to have enough time and buy enough time to be able to find those options, even if they're not necessarily open. And I have this crazy stat about Lamar Jackson. So when he's created with his legs, when he's had a time to throw of 3.1 seconds or more since 2019, he's 18-2.
Good Lord. Yeah, that'll do, I think. So well,
yeah, don't let him bounce around back there. Not going to work out for you.
No, and so I guess what I'll just do then is I'll go ahead and send some extra rushers from the intermediate level and try to get, oh God, oh no. Well, that doesn't seem good either. So what is the best solution in your eyes in terms of what, I mean, obviously we know what Spags is made of. We know there will be varied looks. We know there will be varied pressures. We don't know about Willie Gay right now. Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil will both be out there, and then we'll see either Leo Chanel or Willie Gay. Hopefully Willie Gay ends up being available. Not totally sure what's going on with the neck thing. That was a late week thing and concussion protocol. Don't know where he's going to be. So they're on. They have safety 1, 3, and 4 back there right now. Shamari Connor's been great, but safety 1, 3, and 4, and maybe linebackers 1, 2, and 4. What can you do to speed Lamar up without sacrificing in the intermediate?
Well, a couple of things. The first would be simulated pressures. We know that Spags likes to blitz. We've seen it, but that's not necessarily great. Sure, it worked in the first half of that Ravens game last week when the Texans brought the blitz, but you kind of have to remember that the Ravens took sort of 2 weeks off, so that quick attack, I mean, look what happened in the second half of that game. I mean, he went from completing 5 of 9 passes to 8 of 9 passes, and by the way, he scored a touchdown against the blitz in both halves. That's Lamar Jackson. So what you're going to have to do is kind of mix up blitzes with simulated pressures because they need to disguise the pass rush because Lamar can get confused. Everyone can. Let me be clear. It's not just Lamar, right? So limiting big plays with simulated pressure, perhaps having him check it down a little bit more, keeping everything in front of them, that's going to be an absolute key in this matchup. You have to remember also the Texans, they have one corner that's really, I mean, Derek Stingley's incredible, but apart from that, this is a team that was giving up the most yards per play to play action all season long, like over 10. So you they had to do things differently than the way that the Chiefs will operate, especially because the Chiefs have good corners, like very good corners, 2 of them. So that will help create, like, those boundary situations will be a lot less favorable. So keeping things in front of the Chiefs defense will be the key.
I want to give us some time to talk about the NFC side also, so go ahead and tell me what you're seeing right now for Chiefs Ravens, because you're giving me some places where I'm hoping in regions in this game that I was not necessarily expecting to get hopeful with. So tell me if my hope is going to continue to blossom here.
This one is about as close as they come for me. I know that it's going to come down to the final injury report. I think it's hard to imagine a scenario where this game isn't decided by a last minute 3-point, like less than 3-point situation. I truly right now it's a coin flip in my models right now. So again, injury report will have to come out. But if I'm the Chiefs, I'm really hopeful, and I'm certainly at least keeping an eye on what the prices for flights to Las Vegas might be.
Hey, look, I feel like the perks of it being in Vegas is if all of a sudden you're just going to Vegas, for a few days or whatever, maybe you can put that flight to good use. Still, we are officially in coin flip territory. Not enough precincts reporting that. I don't know if I don't know that you've done that to us yet this year.
I usually don't. I truly don't usually do that because in general it's more it's more decided.
Yeah.
Which to me, especially given the fact that the Chiefs are 3.5-point underdogs, that would lead me to believe that if I were a person who maybe lived in Vegas or did the thing that happens in Vegas more, which I am not because I work for the National Football League,
sure.
I would go maybe take my Chiefs, with a little bit of extra spice, if you will, with a side of spice, a 3.5 spicy spice.
Cynthia, I have no idea what you're referring to, and neither does anybody else, and that's what's important. But it'll be a spicy game. And then what about the NFC side? Where are you at? I'm curious about the models. I'm also curious about just you emotionally going into the NFC Championship game.
Those are two very different questions. As for the model, I do have a closer than 7-point win for the Niners. I have a 5-point win. Which is hopeful for Lions fans. It's just going to be there's a couple of things. Number one, if you look at what happens to the Lions against deep passes, it hadn't been good. Now, I know that C.J. Gardner-Johnson is now back, and that does help. And the Lions, instead of giving up a bunch of deep plays against the Bucs, they actually gave up the most intermediate passes last week in their entire season. I'm not sure if that's better or worse. I just know that it's different, and that game ended well for Lions fans. But I will say it's going to be hard. If there's ever a look where Brock Purdy gets Brandon Ayuk on a one-on-one with Cam Sutton, it's just not going to – it's curtains for the Lions with that. So the Lions would have to do some miraculous stopping on that defense. And also I do think the offense is a little bit better positioned, except for the fact that, there is an area of the field that Jared Goff is incredible at, and that's those in-breakers. And that just so happens to be the very best spot of that San Francisco defense as well. So it's iron versus iron on that one. But I do think if you're looking for something to be excited for in your Lions fan, the Jahmyr Gibbs numbers, I think they're going to go those people in Vegas, they have them too low, if you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs will have an impactful game in this one. And my heart, there's no way I'm not on television saying that the Lions are going to win. Now I'm going to say, just like any good analytics firm, this brings this whole interview full circle. Sometimes you have to take the lower probability option. Sometimes you have to go for the thing that might not make the most sense. The Eagles did it with the Philly special. That wasn't the highest probability play there, and that worked out for them. So there are some things where there are some positive aspects of this.
When was the last time that a sports loss just really crushed you? It's been a while. Because I'm from Michigan, I'm used to some not so great. Yeah.
I'm used to some bad stuff happening.
Your sports immune system is very strong.
It is incredibly strong, and I haven't. I will say though, I've seen some, if you're a Bills fan, that one hurt. That one stung this past, the Chiefs one stung. I've seen some ones where I can feel for other people, but I am pretty immune to terrible ones. In fact, in a lot of ways, I think most Lions fans feel like they're playing with house money at this point.
We talked about some at the beginning of the show because we were, before the playoffs, we were talking about what the Chiefs' actual standards should be and what would each of these results be. Losing to the Dolphins would have been a disaster, and I think losing in Buffalo would have been disappointing. And now it's keep the AFC Championship game streak alive and a really good Ravens team, but I don't think that's going to be very soothing on the plane ride back if they lose that game, or for all the flaws of this Chiefs season. But it certainly feels a whole lot better right now than it would have if their season would have ended either in a frozen Arrowhead or maybe even worse, losing in Buffalo. Again, accomplishments notwithstanding, that would have been a really good day for the Bills, and I think it would have led to some really terrible takes for the next few months if they would have lost that game.
100%. By the way, I think I remember my worst loss. I actually got really, really worked up at the Chiefs loss to the Patriots before the Atlanta Super Bowl.
Wow.
That one really got like I was in the tank on that one because it was Patrick's first season as a starter, second season overall, and it was such a special year. And I just remember I had watched him. I was out there for training camp, and I fell in love with him, just from being funny, and I don't know. I just really liked him. That was partly when my mom started calling Patrick her grandson, because I really just thought he was I was so happy to see that the next generation of these quarterbacks coming out were awesome, and I finally felt like football was okay, well, if Tom Brady and all these guys end up ever retiring, we're going to be okay, and I remember being I was so mad at the end of the game. I was like, I need to get it together.
I need to reconsider how this is making me feel and what that says about me.
I was inconsolable for a little while.
Well, I hope that either way that the Lions NFC Championship trip is a good experience for you. But I would much rather you get to celebrate that and to see your two teams of affection in Vegas. Although Dylan made the point earlier that I do kind of agree with. If the Chiefs win, it would be better for us emotionally if the Niners won, because being the team that has to try to stop the Lions in the Super Bowl is a level of villainy that we're not fully ready for.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard. The Midwest on Midwest crime is a hard one, It's a hard one.
It's kind of the thing that makes the Buffalo rivalry a little stingy. They're the most Midwestern you could possibly be on the East Coast. That's a Midwestern city that happens to be in the Northeast. And I feel that a little bit. Yeah.
No, I mean, look, it's funny because there are very few teams. And it changes every year. I was kind of out on the Texans for a while, and now they're pretty charming,
Yes.
So it's just amazing how things can change so interestingly and differently. But I'll always love all my Midwest teams. I just kind of feel bad for Buffalo because they still pay East Coast tax, and they're Midwesterners,
Yeah, and they had to play the Patriots for 20 bleeping years there with those suckers.
Terrible.
I absolutely feel that, and I would love to just to get to keep talking about a Midwestern Super Bowl. So Cynthia, thank you as always. I hope the coin flip eventually lands on the Chiefs side, and would love to talk about the Chiefs and Lions advancing with you next week.
Absolutely. You know it. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the football.
You do the same. because there aren't that many of these, not that many of these games left. In fact,
I know.
just three of them. Yeah, which actually just made me a little sad. Okay. Thank you, Cynthia.
Bye.
I gotta sit and just kind of stew in that. There's three. Oh God, there's only 3 football games left. Okay, let's take a break. I'm going to have a little crisis. We'll come back and begin to get you ready to go out to Arrowhead to hear from a whole bunch of Chiefs live from Arrowhead as they prepare to have one of the last 3 games of the NFL season, and hopefully the one that punches their ticket back to yet another Super Bowl. Thanks again to Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network, for spending about a half hour with us every single Wednesday. Always love talking to her about anything. And a lot of stuff to begin looking forward to between the Chiefs and the Ravens. I think the Lamar Jackson stat, did you say 18-2? I wrote it down after the first time. When he has more than 3.1 seconds to throw, you gotta speed Lamar Jackson up. But then if you speed him up and spread your defense out, he'll kill you. And if you don't speed him up, he'll kill you. And if you speed him up and leave openings in your secondary, he'll kill you. So good luck. We will hear from a couple of members of the Chiefs defense today, along with the usual. I mentioned earlier, totally different roster this week as the NFL swoops in and makes sure we get to hear from plenty of people from the podium. So today, in about 10 minutes or so, we will hear from Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, Isaiah Pacheco, Justin Reid, Harrison Butker, and Creed Humphrey. That is the plan as things stand right now. Of course, always could get little tweaks or changes as we go, but a lot of Chiefs going to the podium. We're going to bring them all to you here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll also have the game itself for you on Sunday, by the way. Kicking off Sunday evening. You'll hear the game right here, courtesy of Westwood One, and then as soon as the game goes final, it'll be same duo you're hearing right now. So, Dylan, say hi, Dylan.
Hello.
You're supposed to say hi, Dylan.
See, uncoachable.
It'll be me and Dylan and, of course, Covell Hudson also in the post-game show right after the game goes final. So you can listen to the AFC Championship game right here on 810. You can listen to us break it all down, of course, from a Kansas City perspective. And then after the post-game show, depending on how things go, we'll bring you whatever's left of the NFC Championship game. I say depending on how things go because if they lose, we might end up, getting through some things quicker. Heck, honestly, if they lose, we might get through some things slower, depending on what the phone lines look like and why that game goes the way that it does. So we will have you covered, certainly, all Sunday, getting you ready for another AFC Championship game, which is still honestly ridiculous that I can say that as, I mentioned earlier, I did a radio hit for a station in Toronto this morning. I had not been on since last year's AFC Championship game week, maybe the Super Bowl, I can't remember. And the host said, Josh, have you learned to not make any plans for late January by this point? And yeah, no, I have. Like, unironically, we just all kind of assume a little bit. There's a better than non-chance the Chiefs are playing in January in games that matter in a major way. It's unfathomable that is where we stand right now at this point in Chiefs history of an organization and a franchise that has not been that team. I don't ever want the novelty of Reid, Mahomes, Kelsey, and everything this Chiefs team has been. I don't want the novelty to wear off and then also to forget the substance underneath. Go back and rewatch some ugly Chiefs playoff games of years past, or Try to remember what it felt like when you were not sure that your team would ever have a quarterback. Now here we are, and it's better this way. We'll take a timeout, and then we will hear from that quarterback again after we hear from Andy Reid. Reid, Mahomes, Jones, Pacheco, Justin Reid, Harrison Butker, Creed Humphrey. Currently the roster in the lineup right now. We'll see if there are any late movements or anything like that. But I think right now that leaves Pacheco hitting cleanup. That seems pretty good. And Andy Reid will lead us off. So we'll take a timeout, come back, and go out to Arrowhead to hear from the Chiefs. That's next here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I just saw this tweet from Nate Bukaty that reminded me of something I wanted to mention at some point during today's show. In today's edition of New Heights, Jason Kelce mentioned that as he tweeted about Travis Kelce's game day fit walking into Chiefs-Bills, that he looked like he was auditioning for a Wes Anderson movie. And as Nate tweeted, nice hearing some Wes Anderson love on the pod this week, particularly the shout for Life Aquatic from Jason, which is Nate's favorite Wes Anderson movie. I have love for all of them. It does not crack my top 3. This isn't a competition. They've all got great things about them. But hearing the Kelce brothers unanimously, I guess there's 2 of them, I don't know. Non-unanimously would be that one of them disagreed. Hearing both Kelce brothers agree that Wes Anderson rules and that Travis Kelce is now actually just going to consider that his audition, openly just saying, hey, Wes, go ahead and just, you call me. I'm ready for you. Filled my heart with joy. Warmed my little heart. And since you asked, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Asteroid City, Darjeeling Limited, I think is my top 3. I know that's, I know that's a non-traditional answer. I know I've got got a very recent answer, a very wonky answer, and then a stop motion one. But that's my top 3. If you want to argue, 913-381-0810. What is your favorite Wes Anderson movie? No, we got to go to Arrowhead here in a second. Although I tell you what, if we get into a football list time coming up soon, and Jason's not here, we may do a segment of call in and defend what is your favorite Wes Anderson movie and why. We'll talk about it. I will be the Stephen A. Smith of debating Wes Anderson movies. I'll put myself up against anybody. I feel pretty confident in it. But that was wonderful. Again, it's going to be a long parade of Chiefs audio live from Arrowhead today. We'll hear from Andy Reid and find out if Willie Gay or Mike Edwards will practice. Edwards with a concussion certainly won't be a full participant, but we don't know exactly where he is in the concussion protocol. It's also nonlinear. Wanya Morris was seemingly on his way back and then had a setback, and that flux that you can be in with concussion stuff is obviously very fragile. So I don't know right now what I'm going to assume about any of these injured players. You heard Cynthia Freeland mention it just a little bit ago, that the final injury report is going to play a very large role in who actually wins this game and who's favored in this game and everything about it. Not having Joe Thuney would be a big bummer because the Chiefs value him at a very high level, even though it's hard to affect a game as a guard. He's an elite one. I also love Nick Allegretti and think he'd be a starter for like half of the offensive lines in football. He happens to be this team's 6th. Willie Gay and Mike Edwards, I'm actually maybe even more worried about, which is kind of wild because it's the 3rd linebacker and the 3rd safety, who's now the 2nd safety. But as much as I do fully believe in this Chiefs defense, and I'm going to stick to my guns on that even going into Baltimore, the more pieces you chip away, the more opportunities you have for one of those links to just be just weak enough that a guy like Lamar Jackson in particular can punish you for it. I'm a little bit nervous about the middle of the field. I'm a little bit nervous about running the football. I'm a little bit nervous about Lamar Jackson. I would put these Chiefs corners up against anybody. And even in coverage, if it's Justin Reed and Shamari Connor and Deion Bush, it's not the group you expected coming into the year. Again, at safety 1, 4, and 5 because you've lost Cook and Edwards, if that's the case. But even with 1, 4, 5, I've loved what we've seen from Shamari Connor. And Deion Bush is a worthy NFL player, but the Chiefs tried to upgrade that position. They brought him back on the practice squad. He's been a special teamer, and now he's been able to step into this role. Good to have Deion Bush around. Big spot for him to get a lot of work. Big spot for rookie Shamari Connor to get a lot of work again. And it seems like both from a tweet and from just how the Chiefs have sort of treated and used Willie Gay, that he's probably not in this team's long-term plans. But I do think that the velocity, if you will, of the Chiefs' defense changes a little bit without Willie Gay out there. You know, you can be the juice man or the energy giver and all of that stuff. But I really would like to have that athleticism to chase down Lamar Jackson, to try to stay on top of a very athletic Ravens offense. And I don't know what his status will be. He showed up on the injury report on Friday with a neck. He was downgraded to questionable on Saturday, and then Sunday he leaves after a little time out there. So it'll be really interesting to see where the injuries line up and who ends up being out there for practice. We'll hear from Andy Reid. Looks like in just a second, if I had to guess. Dylan is very much like in the starting blocks right now. Like, I'm just waiting to hear the gun go. But we'll hear from Andy Reid and a whole bunch of Chiefs live from Arrowhead here, starting any minute now, or in several minutes. Who's to say? This is real behind the music, and I'll just explain it until it starts probably. But usually there's the media room down there in kind of the offices where you're going to hear most of it. You'll see the backdrops, people tweet out the video and everything. Well, for conference championship game week, they are going, I believe, unless it's changed this year, they're in like the stadium post-game rooms now, because you got a lot more reporters and a lot more people and a lot more cameras. And that media workroom they usually use is barely big enough for the people who show up every day. The extra national presence and all of that, they go to the post-game press conference room, and then also, again, have this long parade of players who will talk all week, including tomorrow and Friday. Usually Fridays during the season is Andy Reid talking for 2 minutes. In the playoffs, it's been Andy Reid and Travis Kelce. This week it's going to be Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and like 4 or 5 other people. Same for today and tomorrow. So, I also have a tweet here from Jim. I never realized how old I am until I'm reminded by some radio guys that some are too young to know about the Silence of the Lambs. # watch that. I'm sorry, Jim. Dylan knew, and I know it. I just haven't seen it.
He's actually read the book, correct? Or
Renee read the book,
my bad.
And we're married now, so basically I've read
By
the book.
osmosis, yeah, there you go.
What you've read, I've read. What I've read, you've read, I think is what's in the Bible. Or the government. I cannot tell the difference. I do not remember. Where's Seth Kaiser? Dylan just gave me a head shake and a thumb point.
He hasn't seen it either.
You got to give some context.
Intern hadn't even seen it either.
How old are you?
What do you say?
How old are you?
Mine?
Yeah.
18.
That's fine.
That's fair, actually.
That's fine, man.
Yeah, that's right.
That's fine. You're 18. No one gets to bully you about anything. What bums me out is that, like, I was probably, I might have been 20 when I interned here, and now I'm like, oh, you're 18. Oh, that's wild. So when I was 18, you were 7. Oh my God, I'm dying. I'm falling to dust right in front of your eyes. So if you really want to feel old, we can make that happen for you around here. I also told Dylan last segment, I think the Chiefs are going to really try to, they're definitely not going to start early today because they're like shuttling people around or whatever. Like, I think they're really going to hit 11:45 today. So we're going to be on it. We're going to have to do all of our little radio magic on this end just to make sure that the rest of the day goes right. And now we're back dancing, which is okay. That's when I read tweets. Someone has sent, Travis Nolte sent to me and Jason a Photoshop of Stephon Diggs, hands on his hips, as in the sidelines after the game. Stephon Diggs photoshopped in front of a picture of Stephon Diggs dropping the deep ball from Josh Allen in the game on Sunday. And that's just mean. That's diabolical. My mom is texting me to not watch Silence of the Lambs.
It's a thriller.
This is also just
very macabre thriller.
Yeah, and I can live with that. I've seen some things. But this does provide important context to all of these movie conversations that we have, and then I get bullied about not having seen, some movie from the late 80s. My mom wasn't going to make me watch Clockwork Orange at 9. And then I didn't. I never found my way into it. This is how it happens. I watched exclusively VeggieTales until I turned 25 years old. That's not true, but the first R-rated movie I saw was definitely The Passion of the Christ. That's definitely true. Didn't even hit me till just now that that's not really normal. Because in my friend group,
I was going to say, you can't watch Silence of the Lambs, but Passion of the Christ is...
he did it for your soul, Dylan.
He did, but my goodness, what a... I can't... I hate watching that. It's an awful movie. It is. I just...
It's not a good time.
No, not at all.
It's not a good time.
Not at all. And yes, it does definitely hammer home how much sacrifice he made. So you are totally right there.
Hey,
but I
Dylan,
will not watch it again.
Watch it you should watch it every day because you know why he's up there? For your sins. You did that, Dylan. You, Dylan, are responsible for that.
Don't put that evil on me.
That's kind of the whole deal. That evil is on you. The only question is if that evil is intrinsic to you or if that evil is brought on in a world of evil. God, I hope they start these press conferences soon, because otherwise Seth is going to call. I will have to apologize to the program later. Said, listen, guys, I didn't call Seth. Seth Kaiser called us. He heard it getting evangelical, and he wanted to get a hand on the ball. Adam Dravetta says, Silence of the Lambs is basically the Passion of the Christ from the perspective of Pontius Pilate.
I'm going to have to unwrap that one and see.
If Andy Reid would have just been on time.
I have heard so many phones drop on the podium and just been...
Okay.
That's here he is.
Nope. Hey, here's Andy Reid.
It's Ted.
Oh, here's Ted, I guess, first. Ted shouldn't be up there today. Andy Reid should be up there today. Hey, Dylan, I'll say this: if you're right now in a place, why don't you just keep an eye off to your left there, Dylan? Let's go left side here. That's okay. Let's just wait for that if that's what you're thinking. Okay, so we got Andy Reid. Can we wait till it comes up over there, Dylan? Let's just do that. Let's get the very beginning because I want to make sure we get the injury updates. That's the biggest thing. So let me know, Dylan, when you got eyes on Andy Reid, and we will go to him and get the news on the practice plans and everything else. Heck, man, you can just pot that up, and he can interrupt me when he gets there if you want, Dylan, and I'll get out of the way. So seconds away from hearing Andy Reid, the pre-practice injury report, and everything else. Here's Andy Reid from Arrowhead.
Injuries here. Guys that won't practice today, Sky Moore, Trey Smith is sick. Mike Edwards still on the protocol. Pacheco, his toe, but getting better. And Joe Tooney with the pec strain. So look forward to the challenge of playing the Ravens. Heck of a football team. Very well coached. I mean, John does a phenomenal job there. As the head football coach, and he knows the whole game. He was a great special teams coach, great secondary coach, and he's been a great head coach. And very proud of him for all that he's done and accomplished. And then Mike working with the defense. He's not only done it now in the NFL, but he did it at a Division I school at Michigan. Did a great job there and came back to the Ravens and has really put together a good defense with a heck of a scheme. And Todd's done the same thing offensively. They're playing well. Their quarterback is a spectacular player and playing well. So as is their the other guys, but it obviously starts with him. So anyways, with that, time's yours.
Andy, just with the ongoing connection between practice and Travis, is there a way for you to describe with perspective what that has meant to this whole era for you guys?
Yeah, sure. They've got a special chemistry. I experienced it with Brett and Sharp. I mean, they were phenomenal together, and then I experienced it with T.O. and Donovan, and they were great together. And Deshaun Jackson stepped in, and they had a chemistry there with Jeremy, and and then come here and these guys develop this chemistry. So I've been fortunate to be around that. But it's hard to explain why and how these guys connect like that, but they do. And they both have great feel for the game, and then they have a great feel for what the other one sees and is going to do in a very short time span. So.
And just as a baseline of everything else you're able to do, I mean, again, is there any way to sort of summarize how that frees up everything else, your faith in that part of the operation?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's part of the equation, obviously, a big part of it, and has been. And so it allows you to do other things and play off of that. But there's some other, ingredients that have to take place too to make it all work.
Andy, curious what you thought about Shamari Connor after he had to go in the game, and also Alec Reddy as well.
Yeah, so I thought Chamari did a nice job in there. That encompasses calls and playing for a young guy to go in and be able to communicate back there is not the easiest thing, and he did it well. I think it helped that he's been able to go in and nickel situations, dime situations. So it's not the first time he was in the game, but it was for that extended period of time, and I thought he did a nice job. Physical, good tackler, did well in the coverage game. Alec Reddy is a guy that has started for us a number of games, and all the guys look at him like he's a starter. So everybody's got confidence that he can come in and do a nice job. Tough kid. And not everything's the most or the prettiest thing that you've seen, but he's going to fight you right to the end, and he's smart. So it's a good combination.
Andy, you've faced plenty of great defenses, but this one being the #1 scoring defense in the NFL with the Ravens, just how complete is this defense you're about to face? Yeah, they do a great job. Like I said, Mike, it's the scheme in which he's added his touch to with the group there, and so they've got multiple fronts, multiple coverages. They execute them well. A lot of the teams that try to do a lot don't do it as well as this group does. So not only are the players listening, but they're being taught the right things, and they're able to go out and perform at a high level.
Andy, at what point do you turn your attention to the next game? I guess after this Bills game, you already knew you were going to play the Ravens. Are you watching Ravens stuff on the flight home?
Yeah, no, once I got back, I went in and started then. Yeah.
There's a situation where you're at the office most of the night and just
I stayed there. It was slippery out there.
A lot was made last week of finally going on the road in the playoffs. Not having done that, is there a benefit to that, not going back on the road?
Yeah, I didn't think much of the, going on the road and playing would be, that much different, because we do it during the season, and you've had some crowds. Green Bay was a wild crowd, loud, packed up there, and other places, that we've gone are well. So I didn't look at it that bad. And then on top of that, that's a great environment up there to play a game in. So even though they're against you, it's really, that's football right there. And they love their team, and they're passionate, very similar to coming in here to Arrowhead. So it's a great environment, and that's the way I've tried to look at that.
talking about road games, Andy, just the players really embrace that opposition role. Just how much did it give you any satisfaction seeing them at the end of the game, just kind of loving up themselves and loving being the quote unquote bad guys?
You're saying us, being the bad guys. Listen, I thought the guys stuck together, and I would say this at home and away, but again, you're on the road, and I mean that is part of it. It's, but the guys, they stuck together through the ups and the downs of the game, which every game presents, and they kept battling and kept hope. And I mentioned after the game that I thought that was the thing that jumped out at me the most. Not that I didn't think they would do it, but just at the level that they did it. Supporting each other was, and nobody flinched, blinked, and just kept battling.
Coach,
Andy, what would you say is the reason your running attack has improved considerably in the postseason?
Well, listen, I thought we did okay during the year with opportunities there, and but I would tell you that Andy Heck does a heck of a job with no pun intended, but he does a heck of a job with the with designing the runs, and the guys execute them. Obviously, Pacheco back healthy. You've got a nice rotation in there that you can go to, and the guys, as well as Pacheco's doing, Clyde, when he has an opportunity, jumps in and does a nice job also. So, and then the offensive line takes a lot of pride in doing what they do, and they know it starts with them. And I think they've been very accurate with their blocking assignments.
Coach, speaking with a couple of the veteran guys, we talked about the younger players and how they pretty much only know, AFC Championship game, some of them know Super Bowl, right? The successes of being here. Talk about how beneficial it was for them to go through those lumps this season, the ups and downs.
It grows you, right, as you'd say. So, and there's a lot of parity in this league. You better figure that out early. That it's not an easy ride. You got to be able to battle through things, and I can tell the guys, the veterans can tell the guys, but the young guys have to experience that. So, but I thought they handled it well. They kept pushing forward, kind of focused on the job at hand, and that was getting better in some cases, just becoming better at their game.
We've got four more. We're going to work the room. Go ahead, Pat. Kind of piggybacking off that, as competitive as Pat is, I'm sure there were times he was frustrated with the way things were going and disappointed. We saw it boil over at times. What was your messaging to him, or what conversations did you have with him about just staying positive, believing that eventually you guys would get where you wanted to be?
Yeah. Listen, Pat's a perfectionist, and he's competitive. As competitive as any of us right here. I mean, it's and more so. He wants it right around him, but he's willing to teach, that's the unique part. So he's willing to share what he sees with the guys from his sight, and help the guys get into position. As long as they're willing to work, he's all in. And so that's what I saw. And the frustration is more off of feeling urgency and winning games. I mean, that's what he's all about. And so I'm not sure there was a frustration other than, hey, let's go. We're playing at the highest level in the world, and if you're going to be as good as we think we're going to be, then the error margin is like this big. So you've got to tighten it down.
Andy, between the Saturday Night Live stuff and Travis's relationship with Taylor, I wonder if you've seen that has posed any particular challenge to Travis to keep out the noise this way in ways he may not have had to deal with in the past.
Yeah, I haven't really seen it affect him anyway. He kind of worked through some being banged up, and I think that week off there helped him. But I haven't seen anything with his relationship, with his off the field stuff, with the commercials and Saturday Night Live, all that stuff. He just goes. I think that all plays into what he is. I mean, that's just part of it. He does all that stuff real easy. So I don't think it gets him out of his personality, and he has to change it all. Yeah.
I gather from how you're saying it, that none of that ever posed any extra challenge for you this season.
No, not at all. Not at all. No. I mean, yeah, not at all.
Andy, in today's game, kind of with the interior pressure that teams try to have, how important has your center and your two guards been to Patrick and what he's able to accomplish or want to accomplish?
Yeah, that's the shortest distance to the quarterback. So to have strength there inside is important. To be able to stay square as long as you can inside is important. That takes strength. Yeah, that's important. I think it's also important that they're good communicators to the tackles. Those are new guys to the system, so they've helped encourage them along the way and help teach them too. Yeah.
Last one. Andy, you've known John Harbaugh for a long, long time. He was already at Philly for a year when you got there. What was it about him that made you want to be on your very first staff? And did you know him at all before that?
Yeah, I knew his dad. That's who I knew, and his dad is the best. And so he was real close to Lavelle Edwards. So I did a thing at a hospital one time with the two of them when I was a young coach. I was kind of carrying Coach Edwards' bag, So, but I got to know him, and we were like the three coaches out of the whole convention that showed up at the hospital. So we spent a couple days together, and it was great. I never forgot that part. So when I met John, I'm going, man, if you're half as good as your dad, you're on. So it didn't take very long, and he is that. He's had a great mentor, and obviously both brothers are tremendous guys. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah.
There you go, Andy Reid here live on Sports Radio 810 WHB Kansas City. Several things that we'll dig into more. Patrick Mahomes will be at the podium in just a second. But literally during that presser, Adam Schefter tweets that Joe Thuney will not practice, as we knew. We just heard from Reid. But he says, in the words of one source, Thuney is, quote, unlikely to play Sunday versus the Ravens. But as another source also said, quote, he's going to work like crazy to play. I believe that for Joe Thuney, it seems like it's going to be physically very challenging, but also he's played through a lot in his career, and he is always out there. Here's Patrick Mahomes live from Arrowhead.
How do you like or not like competing against Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, no, it's challenging. The way he's able to just be a competitor and score the football, obviously, and then their entire team. I mean, it's a tall task. You got to go out there and play your best football, and if you make any mistakes, it seems like the game's going to go the other way. So we've been able to play in a couple games, not in a few years now, but I've admired watching him from afar and know that it's going to be a great challenge for us every time we go up against him.
Is there a type of challenge facing a guy like that that's at the high level this year?
Yeah, no, I mean, he's going to be the MVP for a reason. I mean, he goes out there, he leads his team, he scores, he runs, he throws, he does whatever it takes to win, and that's what the greats do. And like I said, it'll be a great challenge for our defense, but also a great challenge for our offense going against their defense. So it's going to take a full team effort if we want to find a way to get a win.
Are there parts of his game that you particularly appreciate?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you like to see in other quarterbacks is how they improve every single year. And obviously, everybody talked about his running, but you can see how he's developed as a passer, throwing from within the pocket, arm angles, making the accurate throw in big situations and big moments. And that's what the great quarterbacks do. And he continues to get better and better every single year. And so I knew we were going to play in a lot of games like this as our career's gone on, and I'm sure this will be the first of many.
Patrick, do you ever, or have you ever over the last 5 years taken a step back just with appreciation of the streak you're on of getting to this game every year?
Yeah, I mean, you do after the season. You're so motivated and focused on week in, week out, day in, day out, trying to find a way to get to the Super Bowl and obviously try to win it. But I do have an appreciation for where I ended up, the players that I have around me, the coaches that I have around me, and the organization that I'm in, and that we're lucky enough to be in this position. But that's stuff that you want to look at when you're done playing. So right now, I'm just focused on today and how I can get better.
As a follow-up to that, other teams have drama, right? There's some drama down in Dallas with players sniping and family members and all that. That never seems to happen here. Is that why do you think you guys are all on the same page where other teams maybe struggle with that? Is it Andy? Is it Clark? Is it you? Is it what? Why do we not ever see that seemingly?
Yeah, I mean, it's Coach Reid. I mean, the mindset that he comes into the building with every single day, the leadership that he has, He comes in, and we're about ball. We're about having our brothers back, going in there and doing whatever we can to win, but at the same time love each other and get the best out of each other every single day on and off the field. And that's kind of the culture that I got brought into, so I can't take claim to that. That's stuff that he had going for a long time.
Patrick, just with you and Lamar, 2005 was the first NFL Conference Championship with two black quarterbacks. Last year, you and Jalen first in the Super Bowl. Now it's going to be first AFC Championship with two black quarterbacks facing off. Just with Lamar Jackson's criticism, the quarterbacking comments, stuff like that, is that something you look at and take into account of just how some people perceive the black quarterbacks versus how they perceive you?
I think so in a little bit, but I mean, to me, there never was criticism because you just cut the tape on and watch him play. I mean, dude won MVP like his first full year starting, and he was throwing the football, he was running the football, he was doing whatever it took to win. And so I think we started to break through that mold now, and the quarterbacks that came before us kind of set that standard, and we've been able to kind of keep rising the level to hopefully even higher standards, and hopefully the kids behind us do the same. But I'm glad to see that the level that he continues to grow and get better and better. But obviously, I don't want him to play great this weekend, but I am glad to see where he's gotten to.
Patrick, Coach Reed was asked about your connection with Travis, especially in the postseason. He said it was hard to explain why you guys connect the way that you guys do. So I'm going to give you a shot at explaining it. Why is it that you guys are able to connect so successfully, especially?
Yeah, I think it's just at the end of the day, we want to compete. We want to go out there and win. We don't care how it's done. We don't care if we have a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns. We just want to win. And you can see that when you hear him talk. It's about everyone's success, not just his. And I respect that. And it's kind of, like I said, he was here before I got here, so I can see that from day one I stepped in the building. And so when you have a bunch of guys that really want to win no matter what it takes, and no matter who gets the shine, that's when you get the great football teams.
One other thing related to Travis, Andy also spoke about this, that all the stuff that he's had, the SNL stuff, and Taylor almost plays into his personality. But I wonder what it's been like to be around that this year, and sort of for you, but also what you think it's been like for him to have that heightened attention that way.
I mean, Travis has always been Travis. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's been cool to watch for me because, I mean, obviously he has all that attention, but he's just been himself the whole time. He's still Travis Kelce. He still will walk through the stadium and treat every single person like they're his best friend. And he's going to be like that in the locker room every single day. And so it hasn't been any different to me. I've come to the building, come to work every single day, and lucky enough that I have a lot of great players around me, and Travis is one of them.
Just looking back a couple months, I'm sorry, but I don't think we ever spoke with you about what it was like seeing him on Saturday Night Live and what that said about him.
No, I was. It was really cool. I was sad I didn't get to make it. I was one of my best friends growing up. Bachelor party was that weekend, and so I was a groomsman in the wedding. So it'd been tough to tell him I couldn't go. But being able to watch that, I know it was a dream of his. He knows all the skits from guys that have been Saturday Night Live growing up, and he was always telling me ones from like before I was even born. I'm like, Trav, I'm not the same age as you, dude. I don't know what that is. He's definitely, it was something a goal of his to just be on the show, but to be able to host it, and he crushed it, man. I mean, that's something that hopefully longer down the line, if we'll keep hanging him on, that he'll be able to do more of that type of stuff after he's done playing football.
So Patrick's got to go tomorrow too, guys. We'll just do the final three, starting with Todd. Go, Todd.
I asked Andy about how you warded off frustration, what he did to help you work through it. He mentioned you being willing to teach and willing to work with the guys. Where does that come from, and why do you approach it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes from the guys before me. I mean, Alex Smith is the prime example. I mean, he was playing great football at top level, and he was teaching me at the same time. And it's about just trying to make everybody better. We want to win every single week. That's just how it is in the NFL. But you're not going to. So all you can do is get better each and every week, win or loss. And the guys did that, and that's why we're sitting in this football game now, and we're going to try to do our best to try to win this game and get better for the Super Bowl after this.
Sam? Patrick, what's just the challenge? I know you guys have done this before, but the challenging process of moving on from an emotional high of a playoff win and reach
Yeah, I've learned it just from doing it, having those experiences. But I think your ultimate goal is to get to the Super Bowl. But it takes a day-by-day process, step by step, and I've just learned you celebrate, you have those emotions, and then you come in that Monday and you wipe it all clean and you go back to game planning again. And you really want to celebrate is you hope to have that parade, and that's when you can really celebrate. And I try to keep that in the back of guys' minds is, yeah, it was awesome. We won the game. Let's celebrate. We land off the plane. Now we're moving on to the next week.
Patrick, most of your life, there was one franchise above all that dominated the NFL, the Patriots. And I think you referred to it a couple times, having Patriot fatigue. They're always there, right? Well, you've started on the path of the replacement team. I wonder if you relish that and how you feel about that and what's out there.
Yeah, I mean, we still got a long ways to go. I mean, they did it for 20 years, and so all we can do is take it year in, year out, week in, week out, and every single day. I mean, it's something that that's the long goal, is to win that many championships and bring those titles to this organization. But all we can do is focus on the Ravens this week, and that's what we're trying to do.
There's Patrick Mahomes live from Arrowhead here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Some really good stuff from him and Andy Reid both about Travis Kelce that I want to dive back into a little bit later on. I'm guessing it's going to have to be a little bit later on because Harrison Butker should be next up out there from the podium. Obviously, he's been incredibly good as this team's kicker since he took over. But now, as Dylan has made this point many times, is there a moment that Harrison Butker isn't ready for? I don't think there is. Let's hear from the Chiefs kicker.
In that game with Buffalo, you had a kick that kicked all the way through the end zone. You couldn't make it all the way. Just what was the win like?
Yeah, it was tough. I guess the wind wasn't super intense. I think the game against the Dolphins, the wind was higher, but the Bills stadium is definitely lower. So that wind was coming like from the west, I think. And because their stadium's so low, we were experiencing all of that wind. Whereas if you have a stadium like Arrowhead or a bigger stadium, the wind's coming from way up high and then it's dipping down and it's kind of swirling more. So I haven't played a game where there was wind like that hard one direction in a while, but I think it was kind of because of the configuration of the stadium. But, it was tough going that direction. I think Tony Romo mentioned that I missed, from like 51 or 52 short in warm-up. Like we were both struggling, Tyler Bass and myself. But our range going that direction was a 48-yarder, so 47. It was just enough, and you can see on the network broadcast, I'm checking to see if it went over the crossbar, but it did.
Yeah, Harrison, that first field goal going that way, you're usually the first guy to know whether it's going through, but it looked like you didn't know until the referee raised his arms. Was that the case?
No, definitely, because I was concerned about the distance, and it was kind of tailing a little left, and I guess my main concern was, is it going to make it that far? And then also because the ball's dying with its velocity, so early in the kick, is it going to just completely cut left and go left? And yeah, thankfully it didn't, but I wanted to make sure the referees put both arms up.
How much have you admired Justin Tucker over the course of your career? And you guys have been kind of right there, back and forth, battling.
Right.
He's the best kicker in the league, but how much have you admired him to see him?
Yeah, so, I think Tucker's on year 12. I'm on year 7, so he's got, fact check me, he's got more years than I do. But I remember when I was in college, at least, just on YouTube, and I guess probably even senior year of high school, going on YouTube and seeing his, he posted one workout where he's in his Texas, clothes out in their stadium, and he's just, hitting 10 kicks in a row, moving the tripod around and just watching his form as a rookie free agent guy, and really made, a big difference for their team. And I don't know what the career field goal percentage was when he came in the league, probably, I don't know, around 86 or so. And then boom, he's at 90 plus, and he's stayed there for such a long career, no injuries. He makes it look effortless, and I think he's really kind of changed the kicking game and, pushed it forward, which is great. So now all of us young kickers, we have, someone we can look to and say, it is possible to make these 65-yard field goals and, make these big game-winning kicks. But it is cool to see a kicker that's kind of an artist, and he dances after, and he just does a lot of stuff that's very different than most other kickers. But, yeah, he's done an amazing job in his career.
Quarterbacks don't play each other on the field at the same time. What's it really like to have the opportunity to go against him in a game that may come down to kicks?
Every time I feel like we play the Ravens, people will talk about Tucker, and I think the best thing for me to do is just focus on, my warm-up and doing the best I can to prepare myself for the game, and then when the game comes, just focused again on me and making whatever opportunities come my way. But almost as a fan of Tucker and of kicking, I'm going to want to watch him, but I've learned, all right, I can't do that. I just got to focus on what I'm doing, and then after the game, be able to talk with him and pick his brain.
Being a fan of kicking, like, did you reach out to Tyler Bass and express any support?
No, I actually didn't reach out to him at all. It was unfortunate. I'm just trying to give him some time away, probably to clear his head from kicking and kind of enjoy the off season a little bit. But I'll probably text him later on this off season. He's a guy that went to Georgia Southern, so I've kicked with him in the off seasons, him and Younghoe Koo, and he's a great kicker, and I really think he does a great job. But just giving him a little space right now, and it's tough because as a kicker, you're going to have games like that where you miss a kick, and ideally it's not in a big game, but you can prepare and do everything you can. But sometimes the cards just don't fall in your favor, and that's why it's so important to remain humble, because it can happen to any of us.
Harrison, this season, I mean, you've been so consistent over such a long haul, and I wonder if there's, talking about the mental game, is there anything particular this season that has enhanced your focus or made you stronger, made you better than ever? What would that be?
I think it's a lot of different things that have helped. I think physically I'm feeling really good. I'm prioritizing sleep. Family life is going really well with my wife and children. I think there's a lot of balance when I come into the facilities, and when I'm here, I'm able to attack it and do my best. And I feel like that's just helped me be consistent. I'd say I think on game day, I've done a really good job of staying locked in and focused on what I can control and not worrying about anything else. But also, I say this a lot, I can do everything to prepare for the game throughout the week, throughout the off season. But when I go out there, it really does feel like, God can make that ball go in, or he can make it not go in. So the difference between having a season where you're 94% and or 84% is just a couple of misses, and it could be just some freak things that cause the ball to go in or don't go in. And I'm very thankful to have made all of those kicks. And again, I don't think it's all me. There's definitely something else that's helping.
Do you pay attention to the weather reports? Do you worry because they change day to day? For instance, they're saying it may rain or it may not. Do you follow that stuff at all during the week?
Definitely. I think as a kicker, your competition is kind of the surface you're playing on and the weather. So things I look at are, is it going to be sunny? And then if it's going to be sunny, what's the stadium configuration? Because you need to know where the shadows are going to be. That's something that's always affected me, especially if the holder, maybe his shadow is causing where the ball is going to go to be really dark. So when the ball gets put down, I'm not going to be able to see it. Or the holder could put the ball down and you can see the ball, and then your shadow goes over the spot, and then the ball turns dark right before you make contact. Obviously, if it's raining, you need to make sure you have good cleats that you can wear. And then wind as well. You need to know, okay, if this is going to be a day where there's going to be a lot of right to left, I need to make sure I'm working with my holder on, for me at least, for leaning the ball away from me towards him. If it's left to right, obviously it needs to be straight up and down. You got to work on starting at left. But you just try to make sure you're prepared, so you've won the game before you even begin, and there's no surprises when you get to the stadium. Okay, the wind's going to do this, shadows, rain or shine, you're kind of ready, and I think that helps keep you calm no matter what the situation is.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
This is Harrison Butker live from Arrowhead. Sounds like Justin Reed up next. Is that right, Dylan? Give me a little nod, and the pom-pom on your hat nodding along with you. So we'll get to the defense in a second. A lot there from Harrison Butker in terms of the process, the procedure, what it takes for him to be as good as he is at this job. And really, if he's not the best kicker in football, it's going to go to the guy across from him in this game. Hadn't even thought about that kicking matchup between Butker and Tucker. You'd be pretty surprised if either of those guys were not ready for the big moment. I'd say the same is true, though, for one of the leaders of the Chiefs defense. Here's Justin Reed.
Go against them, but also what it's like to see now.
I'll tell you what, it's a hell of a lot more fun to play with them than it is to play against them. That's first and foremost. When I was with Houston, we played against Travis. It's just a tough matchup because those guys are both so cerebral and smart, played a lot of football, and their chemistry is at a level that they're able to create their own routes, so it's almost impossible to defend. You're planning on what you see on tape, and then you get to the game, you see the same formation, he does something different based off of what he sees, and they're on the same page that they're able to get the ball to each other. So truly a dynamic and special relationship that those two have, both on the field and off the field. And like I said, it's a lot more fun to be on this side of it than be the guy defending it.
Speaking of tough matchups, you guys just faced a running quarterback who presents a big challenge. John, I know you got him in the rig how different is Lamar, and how do you have to adjust?
Yeah, all of them.
Guys are your discipline.
All of them are unique. I mean, Lamar's athleticism is second to none. His strength, his power, the way that he's able to run the ball, his speed to get around the edge and get north and south. All of those things are a big challenge for us that we're going to have our P's and Q's knocked out on. Try and contain him in the pocket as much as we can and make sure that we get him on the ground those times that he does run. He can still make all the throws like everybody else. I mean, you get to this level in football, all the games are at the highest level that you can possibly be. You got superstar quarterbacks, you got superstar tight ends, you got skill talent across the board. Offensive lines are all physical and aggressive. Defenses are good. But this is exactly what we want as competitors. So that's a well-coached football team over there, and we're going to need to go match that and dominate in a hostile environment.
Justin, you played against Lamar in Baltimore with Houston before. You haven't played him with the Chiefs. What were your memories of those games early on in your career?
Yeah, one is just the physical nature of the way that they play. They kind of try and wear down defenses. They run the ball, and a lot of teams are able to match that in the first half. And then they come out in the second half, and then, they start to beat down on them, and that's when they really start having success and start running the ball down people's throats. So the biggest thing is to have that intensity and run discipline the entire game, not just when everybody's juiced up in the first half, but to come out at halftime and have that same level of intensity and will to tackle, will to take on blocks, will to be physical the second half through however long it takes to finish the game. So and I think that would be a major key for us, is to maintain that discipline and physicality the entire length of the game.
Justin, what's been the success?
We got two more.
Justin, what's been the success for you guys in the second half? The last 7 games, you won limited teams to 7 points max. What has it been about the adjustments you guys have made?
Yeah, that's the Spagnuolo effect. We make adjustments at halftime. We have the players that's able to take in those adjustments, and some of the things that we put in, we don't even practice throughout the week, but it's just based on what we've seen and what we've been getting throughout the day. And we put it in and we go out and execute, and good things tend to happen. We believe in him wholeheartedly. He believes in us, and we believe in each other. Nobody goes out and tries to play hero ball. We just play the defense, play our responsibility with intensity and a little bit of violence, and, good things happen.
It sounds like Mark Andrews is going to be back for this game. What's that challenge like, especially considering there's no recent tape necessarily?
Yeah, but another guy who's savvy, been in the league a while, runs really good routes, great hands, big red zone target, and that'll be major for him to get him back. I think they'll be able to run a lot more 12 personnel with him and Isaiah Likely, who's really been able to shine in Mark Andrews' absence. So I think that'll be dynamic for him to get both of them back, and we're going to have a game plan for both of them.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Good stuff there from Justin Reed. Kind of neat to have the back-to-back. I was going to talk about it if it didn't get there in the questions. But the back-to-back of what Baltimore does to wear down defenses so the defenses can't meet that challenge in the second half, juxtaposed with the fact that the Chiefs' defense has been better in the second half. We'll talk more about that later. Here is Creed Humphrey.
Intensity he plays with, that's the kind of stuff you need during playoff football. So he does a really good job with it.
Do you have a sense of how the room feels about Nick Allegretti when it comes to
Yeah, Allegretti's a great player. He's been around for a long time, a ton of great experience. He's played in huge games before, and whoever's up this week is going to do a great job.
You've had some troubles on some of the snaps, some low snaps. What do you do to try to correct that? Go off to the side? Does Pat go with you? Do you just fire a couple extra guys and try to correct that?
Yeah, just like you said, get extra snaps in during the week, things like that, and just kind of move on to the next play and make sure you're doing it right the next play.
Have you seen Joe in rehab before? Because he's very durable. He's kind of an Iron Man-like guy. I mean, what do you say about his type of rehab and making sure that he could be ready for Sunday?
Yeah, he's just a tough guy. He does all the things the right way. So, that's just kind of how Joe is.
You talk about the Ravens' defensive front.
Yeah, I mean, they're a great defensive front. They have a great defense, really physical, really aggressive, and it'll be a tough challenge for us. But we're excited about it, and we're ready to get rolling.
Is Matt BK as good a nose tackle as you've seen on film this year?
Yeah, he's really talented, really athletic, really strong, great with his hands. So he's a really good player.
Okay, thanks, Creed.
All right, there is Creed Humphrey. I figured he would have a quicker turnaround at the podium than some, but I would have taken more Justin Reed time if I'm being nitpicky. But there you go. Creed Humphrey talking a little bit about what the Ravens are going to bring and where he's at. We're still expecting to hear from Isaiah Pacheco and Chris Jones. I'm going to go back to Justin Reed until we get closer to hearing from one of those guys, because I think what I just mentioned that he was talking about before Creed popped in there is really interesting. So, asked about the second half successes the Chiefs have had, something we've been talking about for months now. Says this is like an approximate direct quote. I did my best here. That's the Spagnuolo effect. We make adjustments at halftime. We have the players who are able to take those adjustments. Sometimes it's stuff we haven't even practiced during the week. They believe in Steve Spagnuolo. Steve Spagnuolo believes in them. They believe in each other, and that allows you to have that kind of in-game flexibility. I think that's the first time we have heard anybody around the Chiefs defense say something along the lines of like, yeah, sometimes we change the stuff that we didn't even practice, because that's a hard thing to do at the NFL level, and you have to have the coaching staff to implement it and the players to execute it. That degree of difficulty is very impressive to me. It also would explain what it is that makes this team so good in the second half. Because now all of a sudden you're talking about an offense that goes in at halftime preparing to adjust to whatever they saw from you in the first half, and you may come out with completely different answers. And look, I think by and large, and this isn't just me talking out of my rear, but like I think this is something that coaches typically go to and players, especially once they're out of the game, talk about the idea of halftime adjustments being a little bit overblown, where it's not like you go in at halftime and then you like draw up a new play and like, all right, let's go try this and see how that works. Or you go in at halftime and you break out the secret binder of notes that you hadn't broken out yet. A way that this Chiefs defense can execute that is really, really impressive. It's nice to hear Reed allude to that, and also interesting in the grand context of how he sees the Ravens grinding down on teams to make them weaker in the second half. Another player who absolutely grinds down on opposing defenses is Isaiah Pacheco. He'll be up at the podium here momentarily. I imagine that he's going to take, a very efficient path and a violent one. Here's Isaiah Pacheco.
What? Pouncey said that. Which one have you seen that you say, hey, yeah, I think you're right on with that running style of mine?
I'll say the funniest one that I thought was, they said I run like I bite people. Like, I ain't no zombie. Like, that was crazy. Like, so that was one of the funniest ones. You said I run like I bite the ground, bite the grass. That's crazy. So it's a great opinion, I guess, to have on the way I run. For me, it's just being determined and understanding that I have a goal to achieve and we want to get the job done.
Are you angry when you're out there running?
Absolutely. Just through everything, that's been in front of you, understanding the week has been a long process of the week, and, just being prepared, understanding the scheme and willing to do whatever you got to do to get the job done is leaving it all out there in the field with no regrets. Yeah, absolutely. Working with the training room, just doing a great job in there. Just blessed to be a part of it and just continue to get better every day.
What's the last, the 2-minute situation where you get the first down? You kind of take me through your mindset and just how much you appreciate it.
Yes, just knowing that situation is extremely important. You only get those situations in practice, and when you rep it, when it comes in the game and it happens, it's like secondhand nature. And for us, just understanding the scheme and understanding we did that in practice before, that's the mindset of me getting the first down and having the O-line finish on that play.
Is there certain enjoyment in those situations even before it started?
Yeah, definitely. There's a big enjoyment. You win the game right there. It's all said and done. You don't have to send the defense back out there to get a punt or just have them back out there. It eliminates that part of the game, and is a big one for us.
You talk about the end of the game. Just asking you about, I think you were mic'd up, and they showed a clip where you were telling Trav, all right, big bro, I got you. How much do you, or I think it was Patrick, how much do you look to those guys in game for just in different situations?
I look to them in every game. They've been in the situation. They've been here. They've done that. They know this game, man. For me, I've been here 1 year, and I've been a part of it. It's been a long 1 year. So for me, understanding that I've been in those shoes, been there, just getting that second opinion from those guys, hearing them, is going to keep me going even more.
There was a lot of talk in the Bengals
I'll say the intensity changed. It's the grit. You could see the guys, the eyes in the huddle, and the way they bite their mouthpieces down from the start of practice. When it's group install, it's not just group install. It's the beginning of practice, beginning of the game. That's the mindset we have to have because when it's set and it's all said and done, when the ball snap, it's over.
A lot of people have been talking about the way you guys were treated in Buffalo by the fans. Can you talk about them throwing snowballs and that fire you guys up?
Now we appreciate them throwing snowballs. That was fun. I got some dodging skills off of that. It's cool though. It comes with the game. When you love competing in that environment, you gotta love that. And going there with one goal and coming out with the goal that you went there with, it feels amazing.
Have you made strides as a pass protection in the last couple of years? And what are the areas you think you've gotten best at?
Absolutely. Understanding the scheme, being in that classroom, taking notes daily, day by day, and being the guy that's going to be the last defense.
How much has Jarek helped you with that? Because he's always kind of been a legendary pass.
Yes, he's been in the room still to this day, and you guys might not see him out as much on the field, but he's still in the building, still coming in, showing support, and he's with us through it all.
What about last year's postseason run sort of better informed you about how to manage your body over the course of the season? You're hoping to do it again.
Like I said, it's the longest season last year of my career, so understanding now it's the second year. There was no offseason for me last year. I had surgery. So it's been an ongoing work. So for me to understand that, got the routine down pat and just continue to listen to the leaders, take care of my body, and understand the goal we have. Say it again? Absolutely. Just staying longer in the building, being one of the last guys to lead the building.
Isaiah, I can't quite see the shirt. Is that you on the shirt?
Oh, yes.
Can you sell those? What's the deal there?
One of my friends made it. It's 10. We're going to rep it.
Like you guys went to, you talked about going to Buffalo, hostile environment, going to another spot in Baltimore. How much do you guys embrace that feeling, bro?
It's important to us, man. It means so much when you have to go in another hostile environment with just a 53-man roster. Understanding is y'all against the city, and when you come out successful, it means a lot and it shows how hard we've been working.
Last one, Sam. Patrick mentioned just about turning the attention on Monday to this next week. Does he relay that message to you guys? Is he vocal about it?
Yeah, absolutely. That message relayed from the end of that game on last week, which was Sunday. Pat already said that week's over. Now, Coach Reed just said it as well. You can celebrate, but not too hard. It's time to get to work.
That feels like the mantra where this team's at right now. That's Isaiah Pacheco, and we will hear from Chris Jones in mere seconds. He is supposedly in the room. Closing on the podium here is number 95.
Appreciation for what Patrick and Travis can do together.
Absolutely not. No, I'm just playing with you. I think it's more so a collective effort. Offense over the years I've been here, which is 8 years, has been remarkable. I've saved us a lot of games. I've won us a lot of games, and it's defense as well. Sometimes defense gets overlooked because of how outstanding our offense has been over the years. But if you take it down in the playoff the last 4 to 5 years, I think defense has played a significant part in it. So as well as Patrick has been, you got to give kudos to the defense and Spags.
Let's go to Surrey.
Chris, how challenging is Lamar Jackson? You faced him before. What do you have to be mindful of in trying to stop?
He's the MVP caliber quarterback. He has a good chance of winning MVP this year. That just shows you how dynamic as a player he is. And that defense is one of the best defense in the league. I think overall as a team, they're one of the best teams in the league. They've showed that throughout the year on how competitive they are against the better teams in the league. Look at a team like San Fran. Look at a team what they did to Miami, and they've been showing that type of dominance throughout this year. So it's gonna be tough. It's a challenge, but I'm excited for it.
Chris, how much have you really kind of relished in the mental side of your approach up front in terms of playing games with offensive linemen, moving, setting things up, and where are you now from compared to maybe a couple of years ago in terms of using
I think it's a weekend thing. Every game has its challenges, its mental challenges that you have to face, and also the physical aspect. You got the finesse teams, you got the downhill running teams, and then you got the Baltimore Ravens, who can do a little bit of both. They can run the ball, they can pass the ball. So they got weapons on the outside, but they also got a dominant offensive line who can just run the ball. So I think it's a great challenge ahead of us. I think we'll watch a little more film and see what we can do.
Chris, what's just the appreciation level for the fact that you've been in this game here 6 straight years?
I think it's just goes to show the dedication with the guys in this organization, from top to bottom. Whether it's the coaches, whether it's the players. I don't think individuals can get you this far in this league. It takes a team, collective effort, and I think it's a lot of dedication, a lot of support, and a lot of unselfishness amongst that, and a lot of commitment from guys, from the practice squad guys, from your role players to your leaders, and with that, a little luck, and
Chris, it seems like you had some good interaction with the fans in Buffalo. How much did you enjoy the opportunity to go on the road in the postseason with Patrick?
it was amazing. Barbell Tavern in Buffalo.
All right, there you go. It's ended about 10 seconds early there, but that was the very, very end of Chris Jones's time at the podium, and we will go ahead and take a timeout that's way overdue ourselves. We working on our clock management here, but a big day of press conferences from Arrowhead Stadium. We'll break down a few more of the things that were discussed there and continue rolling on here in today's edition of The Zone. No Jason Anderson. I am Joshua Brisco. Dylan Michaels on the other side of the glass. More Zone next. All right, that was the end of our 11 o'clock hour here at 12:50. Listen, I know that we in the zone frequently test the logical limits of what it means to take a break late. But this week, we are really going to test those limits as the Chiefs have a lot more going on at the podium because they're back in the AFC Championship game. I won't go back over the second half stuff with Justin Reed because there's more meat on the bone there, but I want to, I'll give you some. I'm going to try to give a different storyline of each of these presser pieces that we got that I think is interesting that you can think about. Then we'll take a time out. We'll come back and have a little more time to stretch our legs coming up here in the 1 o'clock hour. Not a lot, but a little more time. But it was, of all of the other shuffling around, I think that we have heard, it feels like, just about every Travis Kelce story there is to tell. And we have seen him covered from every angle. We've been talking about Travis Kelce, the football player in Kansas City, for a long time now. We've talked about Travis Kelce, the guy in Kansas City, for a long time now. And then this year, we've talked about Travis Kelce, international superstar, SNL host. Obviously, the SNL hosting post-Super Bowl predated Taylor Swift. And then the star of the playoffs by osmosis or by connection kind of ends up being shirtless Jason Kelce, whose team already lost and is now in the suite in the divisional round hanging out with Taylor Swift and I think Blake Lively and I think a bunch of the other Cara Delevingne and the rest of the celebrity crew along with, Brittany Mahomes and Pat Mahomes Sr. A ridiculous mix of families and friends and international superstars. But the part of it that I thought was interesting that I don't think we've heard quite that way from Reed and Mahomes. They've talked about how, Travis is the same guy every day. And he's not a distraction. Once he's in the building, he's just a football player on this team in this building. And I've always believed all of that, and I've bought all of that. I think that's all legitimate. But there was a slightly different framing of it today that I think Reed kind of mentioned first, and then Mahomes was kind of prompted about. I think it might have been Vahe asking those questions. With Andy Reid saying that all of the off-the-field stuff for Travis Kelce hasn't changed his personality at all because that is his personality. I think that's maybe more profound than Andy Reid even meant for it to be. Maybe Andy Reid meant for it to be exactly that profound. He's very thoughtful. We just don't usually get his, waxing eloquent on a whole lot until there's a chance to talk about, John Madden or something. Then you kind of get those little glimpses. But it makes sense. And then Mahomes says a similar thing. Travis has always been Travis, which has been cool for him to watch. But when you think back to the things that got Travis Kelce in trouble in college and early in his NFL career, the goofing off and then maybe not taking some things completely seriously and having a little too much fun at times, whatever. And then you have the evolution of him becoming, reality TV show and all of that in there as well. He took on the reality TV show pretty early on in the arc of all of this. And he did that because it was true to him. He was a guy that was going to be comfortable in a weird little reality TV show that was going to bring him some more notoriety, but didn't exactly unseat The Bachelor. But that was him. And then there's evolutions, in anyone's identity over time. But I think you see the consistency. Now this is a more grown-up, more professional version of Travis Kelce. But him being on SNL or dating the most famous woman in the world, arguably, hasn't given him a big head or made him shy of the spotlight or anything on either end of that spectrum because he's been that guy the whole time. This is just the time that everyone's watching. It was Super Bowl week last year, and it was SNL, it's Taylor Swift, it's the podcast, it's New Heights, all of that. But it's all still in character for who he is, which is also true for Jason. Him being shirtless in a suite at a game in Buffalo, he's not doing a bit. It's what he wanted to do. It's how he wanted to experience all of that. And the fact that those two guys have have been as consistently themselves in different ways, but in ways that they both seem to be very, very happy with, is really cool, and I think maybe the most important part of the reason that Travis Kelce has taken this enormous amount of fame in this crazy spotlight and has continued to seem like the same guy throughout it all. It's because he was ready for this earlier than it came. He's ready for more after his playing career, and eventually he may decide that he has had enough of the spotlight. But everything we have seen from Travis Kelce, his growth, his ups, his downs, his incredible on-the-field performances, some of the silly stuff off the field, never harmful or vitriolic or anything like that. It always fits his character, and I thought that was an interesting thing for Andy Reid to hone in on and something to keep in mind as we continue to enjoy, hopefully for several more years, the greatest tight end of all time also being incredibly well cut out for the life he is in right now, and I just think that's an incredible thing. We'll take a timeout, come back, have a little more time to chat about some other things from the press conferences as we look ahead to the AFC Championship game, Chiefs and Ravens, and a few more things to talk about. Maybe we hop over to Justin Reed's side and talk about a few more things on the defense and see where we all land. Plus, injury news, and I'll restate a few of those things when we come back.
The Zone is presented by Guaranteed Foods, delivering all natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
Final hour of the Zone today here on 810. I'm Joshua Brisco. No Jason Anderson today. Dylan Michaels on the other side of the glass. Also no Mick Schaefer today as he had to be out there at Arrowhead. I guess there's a chance we could get locker room audio at some point. I think the Border Patrol will have a whole lot of locker room audio tomorrow morning if I had to guess. I believe that they're out there scrubbing the locker room and finding what else there is to be found as the Chiefs prepare for their 6th consecutive AFC Championship game. Some injury news from the Chiefs when Andy Reid gave the injury report just about an hour plus ago. It's been a long day of practice. It'll continue tomorrow and Friday. But Andy Reid said that Sky Moore, Trey Smith, Mike Edwards, Isaiah Pacheco, and Joe Thuney would not practice today. That means Willie Gay Jr. is practicing today, assuming that Andy Reid didn't just leave him out. So that would be huge to know that there's stability coming there with the linebacker position. Although whatever it is, it seems, I don't know, touchy, I guess, for lack of a better word, because it was a non-factor until Friday, and then it showed up on the injury report. He was downgraded to questionable on Saturday. He leaves the game on Sunday, but now he's practicing today on Wednesday. So hopefully that means good news for Willie Gay. Pacheco with the toe is sort of interesting because I think there's a huge array of outcomes for a toe problem. I mean, we saw Mahomes play through a Super Bowl on a toe issue that he had surgery for in the offseason, but also he was impacted by that. I don't know where Pacheco's going to line up there. Hopefully it was just a little bit of a nick up in the Bills game. I don't know if it's getting stepped on or having something tweak in there a little bit, but hopefully it's nothing serious. The fact that Isaiah Pacheco spoke today at the podium would lead me to believe that it was not serious. Certainly not serious enough for him to be in real danger of not playing on Sunday. And again, things are different this week. This is all kind of very behind the curtain, but it's relevant to figuring out what's going to happen here. The Chiefs do not let injured guys talk ever. But things are different in Conference Championship Week because the NFL gets involved and they do all that. That's why we have way more audio coming these next 3 days from Arrowhead. So more availability and all of that, and so it's a little bit of a different balance in terms of how it usually works around here, day to day, week to week. I'm guessing that if Pacheco was in real doubt for the game on Sunday, he would not have been at the podium. But a little bit banged up. I think usually that would keep the Chiefs from putting Pacheco at the podium. Maybe missing practice today, but it being pretty minor, ended up letting them still have Pacheco actually up there. So keeping an eye on all of that, but it seems like really good news for Willie Gay and probably good news for Isaiah Pacheco. On the other hand, during the press conference by Andy Reid, Adam Schefter tweeted, Chiefs Pro Bowl guard Joe Thuney will not practice today due to his pec injury and, in the words of one source, is unlikely to play Sunday versus the Ravens. But as another source also said, quote, he's going to work like crazy to play. Also, again, Trey Smith not practicing today due to an illness, and hopefully that doesn't linger because that would be a problem. But you heard Reid talk about Nick Allegretti, and again, we talked about it earlier too, but I think Nick Allegretti is a starting guard on a lot of teams in the NFL, and he just happens to be this team's 6th lineman. So sometimes it's coming on the field as the 6th guy, or it's being the number 1 backup at all 3 interior spots. I do think, God forbid Trey Smith is still sick on Sunday, or that it's some sort of serious illness that ends up impacting him on Sunday, then it gets kind of sketchy because you're talking about Nick Allegretti and Mike Caliendo starting around Creed Humphrey. I have no problem with Mike Caliendo, but now you're talking about 2/3 of a backup interior offensive line as opposed to Allegretti, who just doesn't feel like a backup. I don't want to say he's not a downgrade from Thuney, because Thuney is a Terminator who just happens to play guard in the NFL. Dude is a tactician. He is seeing things in slow-mo, whatever. He's guard master classes from Joe Thuney are a frequent experience. Jason mentioned this earlier this week. Allegretti, when he got in there for Thuney, dude's a mauler. Like, he is chucking his shoulder around, getting angles, and ripping guys. I think Allegretti will do just fine in that spot. But Willie Gay being back, certainly a big deal. No big news on Mike Edwards there. As far as everything else, I am not going to circle back because we have a little more time. We do have time to actually talk this hour. Got all the pressers and stuff. I want to go back to the thing that Justin Reed talked about that I thought was clearly his most interesting thing. It might have been the most interesting thing from the press conference today, other than Isaiah Pacheco saying he ain't no zombie. That's number one. But Reed, in back-to-back answers, talked about what I think could be, depending on how this game goes, I think could be the story of the AFC Championship game. Which one of these beliefs, which one of these trends holds? The Ravens wear you down, and they keep it up in the second half, and that is the thing that vanquishes you, versus the Chiefs' defense gets better in the second half because, as Justin Reed said, that's the Spags effect. And he said that the Spagnuolo effect. I want to try to find some things these next couple of days that extend beyond or are more specific than just like, can they tackle Lamar Jackson? Will Willie Gay be out there to spy Lamar Jackson? Even if he is, he's not going to be out there all the time. Figuring out ways to be multiple and to be challenging to Lamar Jackson in this game is going to be absolutely vital. You heard Cynthia Freeland, or if you didn't, it'll be on the podcast later on. You can listen to it then. I'm going to need to re-listen to it to make sure I get her record exactly right. But in games where Lamar Jackson has 3.1 seconds or more time to throw, I believe the record she said was 18-2. It may have been 16-2. I can't remember if it was out of 18 games or it was 18 wins, but it's definitely 2 losses and way more wins. Lamar has been spectacular when he has time in the pocket. This is not a pre-draft Lamar Jackson conversation about, oh, you keep him in the pocket and you're just going to wait for him to make a mistake and all of a sudden you're going back to the Super Bowl. That is not where this team is. That is not Todd Monken's offense. Those are not these pass catchers. They built an offense around Lamar Jackson in a way that believed in him as an elite passer of the football, in addition to being an elite playmaker on the ground, and it has paid dividends. I mentioned early this year, I remember saying on the show, because the name is hilarious for me to talk about as being a reason I believed in the Ravens. But I mentioned Nelson Agholor, not because Nelson Agholor was going to change the offense single-handedly, but because Nelson Agholor was wide receiver 4. They have real weapons for Lamar Jackson in this offense, and he is himself one of the scariest weapons in football. If he has his chance, or he has his choice, rather, of quarterbacking from the pocket, getting the ball to Zay Flowers and OBJ, or taking off when the gaps appear, the Chiefs will lose this football game. If Lamar has one of those options, more often than not, the Chiefs probably lose this football game. I think this defense is really good. I'm giving this Chiefs defense a lot of credit by even like having them in a conversation about how they can limit Lamar Jackson in this Ravens offense. Getting pressure with 4 would be fabulous. It fluctuates enough that I don't know if I can predict that the Chiefs will get home with just 4. You want to bring the blitz, do some of the things the Texans did, try to heat up Lamar Jackson, speed up that process, get him under that 3-second time to throw number. That's great. They'll do it some. There will be some wacky blitz of McDuffie out of the slot or Shamari Connor. I'm just going to assume like parachuting out of an airplane. Eventually, Spags has to find a way to attack from above. Is that a leverage penalty? I don't know. There will be different ways that they show stuff to Lamar, but as Cynthia mentioned also earlier, simulated pressures are going to be a way you can do that without getting punished for taking those risks. If you're showing pressure and then overload rushing on one side and then you're able to still drop back into coverage and maybe the guy dropping into coverage is not who Lamar was expecting to be going laterally there. If you could present those options and you can create that hesitation, you've got a chance. Not a win, but a chance. And I am 100% confident that Spags and this defense in the meetings this week and in practice this week, they are giving Lamar Jackson the respect that he deserves, and they're giving the weapons on this offense the respect it deserves. And the question that I will not be able to answer until, like 3:30 on Sunday, is where will this game be entering the half? Because the Chiefs may have they may have a second half plan in place, going into place today. Sometimes in peaks of seasons and in huge moments, you will have, entire installs that will give you options as a defense. It's all chess. I know that you know that I know that you know that I want to, but you will. So weave in will inconceivable, et cetera, et cetera. If the Chiefs are able to stick with that chess match, which I believe they will be, then it comes down to player execution if they're in the right spot on both sides of the ball. Because Stephon Diggs had at least one play that he'd went back when the play call was right, he was in the right spot, the ball was in the right spot, and he couldn't bring it in. The Chiefs have had plenty of instances this year where they, as a defense, have been in the right spot, have had the right call, have known the right thing was coming, and then they've pulled it off because the execution, these players on this defense have been so good. But I just don't think there's going to be a simple answer to this game. I don't think that keep Lamar guessing is sufficient. I don't think keep Lamar in the pocket is sufficient. I don't think keep Lamar from passing is sufficient. And then what if it ends up being about running the ball down the middle? Again, going back to another thing that Cynthia mentioned in terms of the Chiefs being able to run the ball might be unsexy, but run the ball and win the game that way. If that's where the Ravens show cracks, Isaiah Pacheco, zombie or not, should be bashing his head through those cracks in the Ravens defense until the game hits 0. But we're not going to see Derek Nottie walk through that door. By the way, real quick, if Derek Nottie was on IR, I would have heard about that, right? Dylan, you got me real quick? Derek Nottie, there was not an IR transaction, right?
Not that I saw, but
I don't think so either. And Andy Reid just didn't mention him today. Which I think is, to be clear,
I feel like tricep surgery, maybe it's like a...
Yes, I think Andy Reid did not mention Derek Nottie because there's no question about it. But usually if they're not on IR, they will make an actual ruling there. I mean, they made a designation for Sky Moore, who is still on IR. So, okay, I just want to make sure I didn't miss that.
I mean, we saw a guy go off on a cart in an air cast, and then he was questionable. So injury reports now are a little...
That's a good point.
Who knows?
That's a good point. I'm just double-checking again here to make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, Derek Nottie, I mean, obviously didn't practice or play last week, but that's all I'm seeing here still. So that Sky Moore on IR, Derek Nottie not yet. You know what it might just be also? They may actually just be waiting for Sky Moore to be ready to come off IR, and then they'll just make that swap at the time. And, if Sky ends up with a setback, which currently right now. He's not practicing today. They keep him on IR and fully into season. Maybe that's just kind of the little limbo they're in, not wanting to make extra roster moves. But I would say, as I mentioned earlier, Willie Gay not being in the Andy Reid practice rundown, that is a big deal. Derek Nottie not being mentioned, I think is probably an oversight. Not a surprise early return for Nottie. All that being said, Chris Jones and Tershawn Wharton in the middle of a defense is an incredible pass rush and a little bit of a letdown in terms of stuffing the middle. You got Mike Pennell, good football player, good run stuffer, gonna need some help. Matt Dickerson, I don't really get it. Neil Farrell, not trusted to be on the field. You have inside-outside flexibility with Mike Dana and Charles Minihue especially, but they flex inside to be pass rushers. That's a matchup that they can win there. It's not like they're going to, just hold down their patch of grass and take on a double team. So it bums me out, but I do think the Ravens have a pretty significant matchup advantage right there. And maybe this is just a game where Chris Jones has a different type of legacy game. Maybe Chris Jones is an absolute beast in the trenches in run defense this week. Maybe Nick Bolton is way more aggressive and on his toes as opposed to seeming really late for a lot of especially the first half against the Bills. Maybe having Willie Gay back and that athleticism of his ability to move forward in a hurry. Those are the things that could assuage those fears for me a little bit in terms of the Ravens just smashing the ball down the middle of the field. But they're going to need to pull off some tricks that way for that not to be the Achilles heel. There has not been a team in the Mahomes era that has had the ability to beat the Chiefs simply by running the football very well. I had to wage an entire war leading up to the Chiefs-Titans AFC Championship game. I'm like, guys, Derrick Henry's not going to win this game by himself. But the thing that you can't have is an easy 6 yards at a time. You got to close those drives. You can't have silly turnovers. If those turn into field goals and the Chiefs score a bunch of touchdowns, everything will be okay. Again, the Bills were that team for a while on Sunday, and then they were not able to close the job. You win games in the NFL with chunk plays and making big plays through the air way more often than you win plays because you ground out at 250 yards. Especially against this Chiefs team that has a little bit of its swagger back in terms of an offense that will actually outscore you when necessary. It should have had more points, but McCole Hardman, we've talked about it. I get it. I'm letting it go. Deep breaths. But I don't know that the Chiefs can overcome an insufficient run defense if that ends up being a thing that the Ravens want to emphasize. With all that being said, this conversation started by talking about the Ravens thumping teams in the first half and then punishing you again in the second, and the second half being when defenses fall off. That was how Justin Reid kind of assessed that and what the Ravens can do there. On the other hand, the Chiefs have come out into the second half with tangible improvements for so many games this year, including games when they were on their heels a little bit in the first half and including games where they were really good in the first half. I think that's going to continue. I do think it would be very difficult for a second half defensive resurgence to help erase a 17-point deficit if that's where they are by the time halftime hits. I don't think that's where they're going to be, and I still do not know where I'm going to land when it comes to predicting this game in a few days. But man, I think that second half matchup, Ravens offense versus Chiefs defense, and then what will be asked of the Chiefs offense in that position, I just think it's going to be absolutely fascinating, and I'm really glad that Justin Reed kind of cracked that can open there. Going to be thinking about that for the next few days. Hopefully you're thinking about this show for the next few minutes. We're going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, I want to play you one clip from New Heights that's not that serious, but is that fun, with the Kelceys talking about the day that was in Buffalo. Plus, there's one thing going on in the NFL that I do want to mention that we haven't really talked about yet this week in quite these terms, that is not related to a playoff team, but is related to Bill Belichick. We'll talk about that when we come back. Okay, we may need to issue an injury correction. Or I'll just call Andy Reid and try to get some clarification. As now noted by lots of people out there at practice, just during the course of the break, Adam Teicher, Matt Derrick, our friends out there, tweeted out something kind of annoying. Willie Gay and Derek Nottie have not been seen at Chiefs practice. They're indoors today. The media gets a limited view of all of that, whatever. In the portion that they were all able to see, Teicher, Matt, everybody else who's tweeting stuff out has noted that Andy Reid said Sky Moore, Trey Smith, Mike Edwards, Isaiah Pacheco, and Joe Thuney would not practice. That leaves out Derek Nottie, which we just talked about last segment. We assume is just Andy Reid not mentioning the guy who's not returning this season but isn't officially on IR, in Derek Nottie. But Willie Gay not being on that list was exciting because he was going to be at least a limited participant. And I guess in theory he could, magically show up. And hey, here's the maybe worst case scenario. Andy Reid might have thought at 11:45 Willie Gay was practicing. And now he's in the training room. Also on the table. But regardless, that's a bummer in terms of the injury news today because the return of Willie Gay was the biggest highlight of that injury report, and now he is not spotted at practice. We'll let you know if anybody else tweets anything else. We'll let you know if there's any changes there at all. The official injury report from the day of practice will come out this afternoon, and we can take another swing at it then. But Derek Nottie, unsurprisingly, and Willie Gay, a little bit surprisingly, just from the context of Andy Reid's injury report, not at practice today, which again, full list one more time, means no practice today, not seen at practice today for Sky Moore, Trey Smith, Mike Edwards, Isaiah Pacheco, Joe Thuney, Willie Gay, Derek Nottie. I would bet that we do see Trey Smith and Isaiah Pacheco on Sunday. I don't know about everybody else. Everybody else feels like kind of a 50-50 proposition. We're talking about a concussion for Mike Edwards, so there's a lot of wiggle room there in terms of how that can end up going. He's got to pretty much clear like every hurdle about as quickly as possible to get the 1 week turnaround that way. But we'll see. Again, Monty Morris made his way back and had a setback because head injuries are scary. So we'll see where that stands. I want you to hear this clip from New Heights. The episode today was fun. It wasn't as sound-biteable as some. It's just nice to hear Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce talking about the time in Buffalo. Travis, from the game perspective, he did note that first touchdown was basically bringing back the play when he scored in London, however many years ago that was. It's been a while since the Chiefs have played in London. But that was kind of neat and, some fun tales. I mentioned earlier Kelce putting a little more context to the state of Bills fans in that game, being, I believe he may have used the word hateful at one point. Don't quote me directly. I think that was in there. But some of that stuff was fun. And, if you're a regular New Heights listener, and they had talked about Wes Anderson movies, which is huge for me. But one of these little clips here is taking a little bit of a look as the two of them discuss what exactly went down, less on the field and more in the suite when Jason Kelce was living his best life.
You celebrated my touchdown by taking off your shirt, screaming, jumping out of the suite, chugging a beer with the fans, then jumping back into the suite. I watched this, and it was pure pandemonium. Just pandemonium. Tell you what, man. If you don't run for president, this all is just going to go to waste. This is all just it looks like a political campaign.
Stop. There's nothing political about this. This is just a man in his elements with his Bills Mafia compadres enjoying the dead of winter. That's what this is. I wish I would have stayed out there longer to actually get my nipples hard enough.
Your thermostats couldn't gauge how cold it was yet?
My thermostats didn't regulate to the temperature.
There was not enough cameras on the suite where you could see Kylie, though. I wanted to see her reaction to all of this so bad.
I'm not going to lie. I gave Kylie a heads up. The moment we got into the suite, I said, I'm taking my shirt off and I'm jumping out of that suite. And she said, Jason, don't you dare. I was like, hey, just letting you know what's happening. I'm not asking for permission. I'm doing this.
Once a Kelce man's determined, there's no stopping him.
And she was already telling me to be on my best behavior because we were meeting Taylor.
This is hilarious.
I was like, Kylie, when I met you, the first day I met you, I was blacked out drunk and fell asleep at the bar. This is part of the charm. This is part of the Jason Kelsey charm. I want to make my best first impression. This is my best chance.
My best first impression is the worst impression ever, so I can just build
Set
from that
bar,
point
nice
on.
and
Yeah,
level.
exactly.
I mean, come on. We discussed this yesterday. We debated. Where was Kylie's head at through this process? Because like Jason Anderson, not Kelsey, like Jason Anderson noted, like, look, she's seen this before. She was back there in the back just looking on, just, this is my life. But I think both details, like 3 details there make it better, make the story even more fun. One is Jason giving her the heads up is probably a good play. So she knows it's not just you being so drunk in the moment. Jason Kelsey also took a shot out of a bowling ball in the parking lot, so I don't think that beer we saw him drinking was his first. But hey, here's the heads up. He talked about again, wanting the full like Buffalo experience, taking the shirt off. He texted Ryan Fitzpatrick and tried to get the game plan all figured out. Listen, I'm going to do this. I want you to know this thing is going to happen. All right, fine. That makes sense. She knows who she's married to. But the detail of, she told me to be on my best behavior because we were meeting Taylor, is so funny. Because I imagine at this point, Kylie Kelsey's got a pretty good Rolodex of people she's met, and now the entire family has become famous in a way that has to be kind of weird but pretty cool. It seems like it's a pretty cool level of fame to be in, at least for the extended family. But she's, a little nervous or just wanting to present a good first impression to this incredibly famous, incredibly wealthy, and I don't know if she was a Taylor Swift fan before all of this or what. I have no idea. They may have mentioned that somewhere. I haven't heard it. But it's we're gonna meet Taylor freaking Swift. I mean, hey, listen, if this goes well, this might be my sister-in-law, Taylor Swift. Guys, look, my first time meeting you was blacked out, falling asleep on the bar, and that worked out great. So I'm just gonna be me, and it's gonna keep working.
Best line is start as low as possible, so all you have to do is work up.
Just get one thumbtack of a good first impression that everything else is barely dangling from.
Basically a good handshake and a nice eye contact hello, and then downhill from there.
That, I think, is really a really powerful strategy. It also, in just a perfect circle of narrative from something we were talking about earlier, with what Andy Reid said about how Travis Kelce has handled all the fame and the notoriety and the off-the-field stuff and the relationship and the E.T. reporting on the fact that he won't be able to go with Taylor Swift to the Golden Globes or whatever it was because he needed to be at practice because he has a job. He has a team. That hasn't shook him because that is him. Jason Kelsey meeting his future wife, meeting Taylor Swift with his wife, being on TV, and after what was likely, not definitively yet, he hasn't confirmed, but Schefter tweeted it. Jason kind of refuted it, whatever. What was likely the last game of his NFL career. He even talked about, like, hey, that it was physically difficult, emotionally difficult this entire season. So give me an opportunity to just go out there and forget about all that and just to go crazy at my brother's football game in a suite that contains a net worth I can barely wrap my head around. That's awesome. That's where his head was at. But that's him. He's at times the more like serious football guy, it feels like, of the brothers. And then also, when they had a parade in Philadelphia, he was dressed up as some sort of mythical character of the name I cannot currently remember the name of. Looked like a big genie. I think there's specific Philadelphia lore to it that Dylan is looking up now. But that's just them, and it's why that works. It's why New Heights works. It's why both Kelsey's personas work. It's why the Super Bowl was fun and not insufferable.
Mummer.
Mummer?
Yes.
Do you have any further lore on
I
Mummer?
am on that,
Okay.
yes.
I think there was some. I can't remember what it was. Lebo has also texted mummer.
Celebration, fun, and family. That's what they're about.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good credo, you know?
That, and again, to, as we say, feed a fed horse. That's just him.
Mummers in Philadelphia are costumed citizens celebrating the new year with friends and family.
It's beautiful. And again, just so... I feel like I have a pretty good radar for... We talked about this earlier. A pretty good radar for, like, phony. You know, for just trying to put on some sort of front, whatever. You can't even nitpick at the Kelceys. And all of that ranging from how do you handle suddenly becoming one of the most famous people in the world, which Travis Kelce has actually experienced this year, all the way to how do you act when you meet one of the most famous people in the world who's not your brother, but is dating your brother. I'm going to take my shirt off and jump into the crowd, I think. Because that's what I would do if she wasn't here. That's what I would do if she is here. It's what I would do getting hammered after a difficult NFL season that may have been my last. I'm going to party with the fans in Buffalo, celebrate my brother's success, and watch him hopefully go to another Super Bowl. We'll see if we can run this back in the AFC Championship game next week. What a cool vibe.
It's in the same vein of why Cynthia should not feel bad about offering a round of shots after the Lions won the second playoff game in almost 30 years, because that is just how they would naturally react to such a occurrence or event. So
that is so true. I don't know how many other ways we can compare Cynthia and Jason Kelce, but I would like to try. I feel like Cynthia would absolutely wear a costume for a parade of some sort. I will have to text her about this. We'll circle back and figure out what. I don't want. You know what? I'm going to wait until after the Lions are either win the Super Bowl or the season ends, because I don't want to jinx that for her.
I don't even know if there would be any type of what's the word I'm looking for? Coordination or any type of parade if Detroit wins. It's just going to be madness. Like, it's just going to be absolute madness, and there'll be some buses that go down the street.
Yeah.
And if you're there, sweet.
And it's going to go on for 3 weeks.
Yep.
It is not going to be
like
a 2-hour paid rep.
Yes, it's like the Ovechkin Stanley Cup run.
The entire city will be so drunk for so long that, like, they might wake up in time for training camp.
Cars will be like a year behind. Like, they won't even make next year's models. It'll just be, okay, we're skipping 2025. 2026 models coming out soon.
If the Lions make the Super Bowl, go ahead and sell your Ford stock. It's just not going to, I just cannot see it being very good for the dividends for the next 365. They're going to need a full year at least to sort of sober up and refocus. That's such a good point, Dylan. That would really be fun. It would be more fun to have another parade here, personally, because I would go to that one.
We're another Patriots way that we're getting close to that is that we're starting to have kids with the sign. The good thing is our baseball team is the only other team, and they don't have like a bunch of things to add on, but there's going to be kids with signs now that are like, this is my third parade, this is my fourth parade, and everyone's going to really love us even more. So,
and there's just, listen, folks, you just don't have a choice at this point. It's just what your team has done. You signed up for this football team when it was bad in all likelihood, just knowing most of the history was. You hopped in at the ground floor, now you're the villains. And if that means you got to rip out the throat of the Lions in the Super Bowl and eat Dan Campbell's kneecaps, it's just what you got to do. Obviously, there's a very big game still between both of those teams and getting there, but it's the most wild Super Bowl matchup. The Midwest energy of that would be a blast. Let's just go ahead and start with the Ravens. We'll take a time out here. I want to talk about one funny thing going on with Bill Belichick right now, and then pretty soon we'll get out of here and let the program take its rightful spot, kicking off at 2. No Jason Anderson today. Hopefully he's back soon. You know, late scratch, the injury report, all of that. Didn't see him at practice, actually. Wasn't originally on the report, but I'm going to try to get Andy Reid on the phone and figure out what's going on with Willie Gay and Jason Anderson. More Zone next. Earlier today, a lower third graphic popped up on one of the TV shows that I've got on in here. And it just put in matter-of-fact terms something that I guess I knew, but hadn't given a lot of thought to the context of. Dylan, do you know all of the teams who have had formal interviews with Bill Belichick this head coaching cycle? Could you list them all, do you think, off the top of your head?
Yes, the Atlanta Falcons. End of list.
End of list. Now, I guess there are layers to all of this. I think there is a chance that Bill Belichick wants too much control for me to be really excited about putting a young roster in his hands because he, especially from a personnel perspective, I feel like he made some mistakes in New England. You'd rather pair him with somebody who you trust to make a lot of the day-to-day above him, and then he can do the thing that he's the best at, which is being arguably the greatest head coach in NFL history. But is it reasonable to say out loud that the Atlanta Falcons are the only team that looked around the NFL right now and said, I want Bill Belichick?
Starting to look that way.
There's one alternative that would make some sense, but then I would also say it and it'll make you laugh. Is there a chance that Bill Belichick looked around the entire NFL and he said, the only team I want to talk to is the Atlanta Falcons? I don't know which side of that coin is crazier.
I was about to say the same thing.
What is harder to believe? And it seems like it makes sense that you have the old, ready to go for it, wanting to hand the keys to the kingdom, ownership in Atlanta, giving that to Belichick. It makes sense. It seems like there's mutual respect there and that relationship might be quality. But is Bill Belichick gonna start over with a young quarterback again? Are the Falcons going to try to get in on the rookie quarterback game? Or is Bill Belichick going to try to get in on Kirk Cousins? It's a pretty good roster in a lot of ways. I mean, there could be a good offense built there in Atlanta if they have a quarterback that...
It's a bad division, too.
It's a very winnable division. That's a great point. But is Belichick going to be able to win a division with an okay veteran quarterback? Do you want him to be the guy that molds a young quarterback? Those are real questions, and I get it. But if you're the Tennessee Titans, and you had Vrabel, maybe, I don't know, whatever. If you're the Chargers, if you are any NFL team, and you think, nah, I don't want to talk to Bill Belichick, that's wild to me. And so maybe for Belichick, maybe he's saying, yeah, no, I'm not going to fly to L.A. and Vegas and Tennessee and all of these different spots, Seattle. I'm not going to fly across the country 5 times to talk to every team in person. Maybe Belichick is saying, I'm not going to log on to Zoom 5 times to give each of you guys 2 hours of my life. Maybe he likes the fit in Atlanta. But with the reporting and the details that we have right now, it seems more like the rest of the NFL is like, no, we're going to look at some other things first. We're going to find our young play caller, figure out a young up-and-coming defensive mind who's going to be here for a while. And I get it, I do. But there's just something on the face of it that Bill Belichick can't seem to find a home right now that's really, really bizarre. Thanks for hanging out with us for this edition of The Zone. The program's up next.